Chapter 344. Contact with Ghost Stories. The Collector has been made. Grade S+. Rank 3rd on the theme park's S-grade Ghost Stories ranking. Please handle this with caution. Faction. Neutral only. The Collector's waste collection station will not be affected by other areas of the theme park. Can trigger ghost story events. Scary Collector. In turn at the waste collection station. Directly kill the Collector to obtain 120 ghost story points as a reward. At the same time, obtain the ownership of a special area, the waste collection station. In the dark, the black thread used to skewer limbs was quickly absorbed into a mysterious person wearing a gray checkered vest. The boss of the waste collection station was a ghost story known as the Collector. In terms of level, he was only lower than Mr. Aha and the lamp. Moreover, the waste collection station that he controlled was completely unmonitored by the lighthouse. This was why Han Dong chose to come here first. He had a normal body about 1.8 meters tall, but compared to Abel, the boss body was slightly thinner. Various lines ran through his dark skin, similar to the stitched creatures in mysticism, but completely different. His head was abnormal. Above his neck was the structure of a metal safe. It seemed that all the treasures that the Collector thought were valuable would be locked inside. When he met Han Dong's group, the knob of the safe turned crazily. Click! The lock opened. An almost tangible sense of danger overflowed from the safe. It felt like hundreds of arms were growing out to strangle Han Dong and the man's throats. In the blink of an eye, the illusion of the arms disappeared, and the safe was closed. It was impossible to see what was inside. The boss took out 2 items. An eyeball was held in his hand. A radio that could produce sound was attached to his waist. He used the eyeball to observe the two at a close distance. At the same time, he noticed a Rolex on Han Dong's wrist. The radio on his waist started to receive signals and made a mechanical sound. Buzz. I could provide any help you need, Buzz, but I will not leave the waste collection station. Obviously, the Collector saw through the purpose of Han Dong's group at a glance. He directly gave his bottom line. Everything in the waste collection station could be taken away if Han Dong wanted to use it. He was the only one who didn't want to take part in this uprising. Mr. Collector, I have a proposal here. If you have time, please take a look. As for the things you have here, sir, they are too complicated for me to use. I'm sorry to disturb you so late at night. We'll take our leave first. Han Dong handed a plan that he had prepared in advance to the powerful Collector with both hands. After saying goodbye, he decisively left through the gate of the waste station. The Collector stared at Han Dong's back and seemed to be deep in thought. He aimed his eyes at the contents of the proposal. After reading it carefully, he immediately folded the proposal and strung it with a black thread. Crack! He opened the safe and stored the plan as an important item. When leaving the waste station, Abel frowned. Han Dong, do you think the Collector will help? He seems to be the same as the keysmith. He doesn't want to get involved in this. After all, from the perspective of the ghost stories, the two of us won't stand a chance against Lighthouse. The reason these people don't belong to Lighthouse means that they still reject the supervision and control of Lighthouse. Indeed, as you said, Abel, they don't want to get involved in this at all. Because if the two of us are placed on the scale, we won't be able to maintain a balanced relationship with Lighthouse on the other end. But what? Han Dong drew the scale in his hand and explained, once they see that the two of us can really balance the scale, these ghost stories will naturally join in. What we need to do is to spread the information to these ghost stories that don't belong to Lighthouse and are above it. Let them know that I'm about to start the operation. Let them slowly watch in the dark and see how we turn the scale around. Could it be the clown that you set up inside Lighthouse? That's right. The scale isn't just the two of us. Once the clown is added, the scale will start to shift. We only need to continue to distribute the flyers. As long as the information is spread, we'll be halfway to success. Han Dong and Abel tried their best to avoid all the lights and moved forward in the darkest corners. Along the way, they carefully passed the information to the ghost stories that were neutral or belonged to the scary ghost stories camp. The streets and alleys were filled with wanted posters. The streetlights lit up the theme park at maximum power. The special doctors that belonged to Lighthouse were patrolling the streets and capturing the ghost stories that refused to obey them to force them to undergo medical treatment. In this kind of environment, Han Dong and Chun Gu moved very slowly. This was why Han Dong had them return early. It was easier to distribute the flyers alone. Okay, I'll think about it. That's all. I'm very busy. A ghost story with a skull face immediately closed the back door. He belonged to the Scary Ghost Stories camp. When he saw the Rolex in Han Dong's hands, he appeared very friendly. But in his heart, he wanted Han Dong's group to leave as soon as possible. Basically, whenever they found a ghost story, they would be given the same cold shoulder and ostracized situation. If it was anyone else, they might have given up already. However, every time Han Dong distributed a flyer, he would smile a smile that felt like he was about to succeed. After distributing this flyer, they moved forward in the darkness. When they walked out of the alley, a familiar scene appeared before their eyes. In front of us is the park that we came from, about 500 meters ahead. It was the old park that the team entered when they first arrived at the inner layer. It was there that they found the Abyss public toilet. By the way, the probability of the Abyss public toilet appearing in the park is the highest at this time. If we happen to run into it, we should try to give the butcher a flyer. After all, he's a neutral member. The main road that led to the park was completely lit up by the lights. Without the cover of the buildings, if they wanted to sneak over, they could only take the waterway. Just as the two of them sneaked along the bank of the river, moving forward in an area where the lights could not reach, a series of bubbles floated to the surface of the river. Then, seaweed and black hair appeared one after another, revealing a pair of eyes that stared at Han Dong and Chun Gu. Just as the other party looked over, Yi Zichen's expression changed. A dark light flashed on Han Dong's right arm. In order not to cause too much of a commotion, Han Dong released a black crow that did not glow or make any sound. It was constructed from pure magic. Whoosh! The crow drilled into the female ghost story's forehead. Ha! Seaweed, black hair, and a pool of black dirt spread out. But the seaweed brought something to the surface from the bottom of the river. It was a flashlight that seemed to have been soaked for a long time and abandoned. Click! The flashlight illuminated. Even though Han Dong and Abel had already dodged at the first moment, the light still shone on Han Dong's calf. BZZT, BZZT, BZT. The familiar sound of electromagnetic waves sounded. Lantern Man has arrived. Chapter 345. Trouble is coming. The moment they were caught by the light, a sense of pressure hit them. This caused Han Dong and Abel's backs to be instantly drenched in cold sweat. Run. They definitely could not fight the Lampman here. Let's not talk about whether he could win or not. Once the battle started, the whole city's attention would be focused here. A large number of ghost stories belonging to the lighthouse would come like a tide, directly swallowing Han Dong and Abel. All the preparation work that the two had done during this period would go down in flames. What they needed to consider now was the escape route. Whether it was the shop or the waste collection station, they were too far away and the risk was too high. If they were intercepted or suppressed by a special sealing method, it would be over. They could only take a gamble. At the current time, the probability of the Abyss public toilet appearing in the abandoned park was 61.7%. It was a gamble, without saying anything else. Han Dong directly merged with the Dozier Crow hiding inside his body and rushed to the park area that was only 200 meters away. Abel also understood Han Dong's meaning. He turned into a white wolf and moved forward side by side. In the 5 seconds after they were discovered, a large number of ghost stories nearby were approaching. There were various hanged people hanging from the street lamps by the river. They kept humming a strange, mournful tune that could affect other people's mental state. The tongues in their mouths could also coil around the target to paralyze them. A homeless man standing on the railing opened his coat. Stinky roots grew out from his body and tried to coil around Han Dong and Abel. There was also a man dressed like a magician. He took off the tall hat on his head. A large number of pigeons with red eyes flew out from the hat. Contacted Ghost Stories, The Moaning Woman, level B+, Contacted Ghost Stories, The Sticky Wanderer, leveled. Contacted Ghost Stories, The Evil of Magic, leveled. The continuous system notifications did not distract Han Dong. No matter how many ghost stories came, Han Dong kept more than 60% of his attention on the Lamp Man. In Han Dong's eyes, this group of ghost stories who had come to fight for the head due to the bounty were not as big of a threat as the Lantern Man. Every time a strange attack closed in on the two people who were fleeing at top speed. Xing, Zheng, Zheng. When it was within 3 meters, it would flash with a kind of evil saber light, quickly cutting off all kinds of lines, doves, tongues, and some flying limbs. A terrifying crimson woman was attached to Han Dong's back at all times, killing everything that threatened her master's life. It was then that Han Dong noticed Lamp Man's actions. The flashlight was aimed at the two of them. It was impossible for Han Dong to avoid it at this stage. He could only face it head-on. They're here. Abel, you walk in front of me. The bone wings flapped less frequently and slowed down, allowing Abel to walk in front. The two of them were in line with the flashlight. Crack! The flashlight was switched on, and a beam of light shone directly at them. One had to know that this kind of light could instantly annihilate the attending doctor in the lighthouse. Even the head nurse wouldn't be able to withstand it for long. The bone wings coordinated. Han Dong suddenly turned 180 degrees. His crow-like claws were closed in front of him, and the seed's energy was released at full force. In the palm of his hand, a pure black plague of pollution shot out in a straight line. The black plague actually blocked the light. In this way, Han Dong maintained the release of energy and continued to retreat through the bone wings. They were not far away from the park. Abel, who was walking in front, had already caught a glimpse of the light coming from the public toilet. The Abyss public toilet was there. It could be blocked. When he discovered that the black energy released by Han Dong could actually block the light, Lamp Man changed his mind. Suddenly, Lantern Man turned the flashlight away from Han Dong and shone it at the railing. Light energy transfer. Wherever the light reached, Lamp Man could quickly complete the physical transfer. In an instant, its strong body that was covered in electric arcs appeared beside Han Dong. Light shot out from its eyes, and the two men's bodies were instantly vaporized. Chun-Li, who was hiding in the dark, swept up the evil energy and slashed at this person. Crack! He caught the blade with his bare hands. His palm, that was full of metal cables, firmly grabbed the kitchen knife that was slashed out in the dark. Seeing that the electric current was about to be transmitted through the knife to Chun-Li's body, prison recovery. Space transfer allowed Chun-Li to return to prison. If such electric current flowed through her body directly, the consequences would be unimaginable. Immediately, Han Dong aimed his palm at the light, maximizing the damage of the plague. Similar to the situation when he resisted the light earlier, a kind of plague energy with strong pollution shot toward this person. One had to know that the pollution from the life outside the city was fatal to both humans and monsters in the Destiny realm. Even the clown was afraid of the tentacles in Han Dong's body. However, when the black plague hit the surface of Lamp Man's body sizzle, a layer of high-strength electromagnetic film was activated, and it actually canceled out all the black plague. Of course, this also consumed a lot of energy from Lamp Man. Next, the man grabbed the ghost stories, the stinky wanderer that was leaning not far away. Electric current was released from his palm. The poor wanderer was instantly burnt to a crisp. Many metal tubes were connected to the wanderer's body, sucking the burnt flesh into his body. Through a unique digestive system, the nutrients were converted into electricity. This allowed Lamp Man to return to his best state. This scene was also seen by Han Dong. Biological energy is converted into electricity, efficient and fast. To defeat Lamp Man, he must be the only one in the battlefield. He must not have any helpers to support him. Sure enough, the key crafting part is indispensable. At this time, Han Dong and Abel successfully rushed into the park. Several dog walkers and dirt monsters that had been waiting there for a long time tried to attack the two, but they were all torn apart by the violent Abel. Abel went crazy. His speed was so fast that one could see the shadows of 6 wolf claws attacking at the same time. When they were 10 meters away from the public toilet, buzz! The flashlight suddenly shone from the side of the two and shone on the roof of the public toilet. Lampman stood on the roof of the public toilet, forcibly blocking the two's path. Sizzle! Electromagnetic interference rippled out like a halo. Just as Han Dong and Abel were panicking, dozens of metal wires shot out from Lampman's arms. Once they were entangled, the consequences would be unimaginable. At the crucial moment, an unexpected situation happened. Clang! The roof of the public toilet was shattered. A large and red-hot iron hook stretched out and hooked onto Lampman's body. Then it pulled him into the abyss. The wires that were about to entangle Han Dong and Abel were also pulled away. Then, a series of metal breaking sound came from inside the public toilet. About 1 minute later, a mixture of metal wires and meat was thrown out from the public toilet. When they saw this scene, the ghost stories lurking in the other parts of the park all showed fear in their eyes and retreated at full speed. At the top of Lighthouse, a searchlight started to flash. It reconstructed Lampman's body. He gritted his teeth and spat out 2 words, "Butcher." Chapter 346. In the theme park, the top 10 S-grade ghost stories all seem to have their own territory. This kind of territory was completely isolated from the lighthouse and was not monitored by the lighthouse. Moreover, this group of people had their own group of forces. Abyss Arena. For Han Dong and Abel who came again, the Butcher set a rule. As the previous battle was not carried out properly, this time they had a fight with the Butcher. After that, they could sit down and talk about the conditions. After all, Han Dong was someone who had been personally summoned by Lord Hell himself. When Abel and Han Dong faced the Butcher who had a pig's head hanging on his waist, a metal chin, and a chainsaw and iron hook, a high-intensity battle immediately broke out. It took a total of 1 hour. In the end, Abel cut the Butcher's hamstring as an opportunity. When the Butcher's center of gravity was unstable, Han Dong flapped his bone wings and instantly turned into a black shadow and stuck to the Butcher's forehead, ending the battle. In a lava-style room, all kinds of crude barbecued meat were thrown on the table. Due to the physical exhaustion in the battle, the Butcher kept biting his metal chin, crushing the meat and swallowing it all into his body. With the satisfaction of eating, his body was fully rested. The Butcher's body also changed one after another. Sizzle! The fiery red skin kept emitting steam. The fat body that was originally several meters tall kept shriveling and shrinking inwards. It slowly turned into a slightly plump, ordinary person who was less than 6 meters tall. There were still long horns on his forehead. Under the messy, fluffy black hair was a rather pleasant round face, which was completely different from the Butcher's image in a black leather apron. Han Dong did not expect such a figure. As Han Dong had been received by Lord Hell, the Butcher became very friendly and no longer had any hostility. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he told Han Dong about his origin story. The Butcher's name was Amuro Hara. Due to his short and plump figure and introverted personality, he was often bullied in various circles. After learning how to cook, he worked in a large restaurant. Due to his exquisite cooking skills and attitude towards food, he was praised by the head chef. This made the chefs in the kitchen jealous, and their bullying of him intensified. Once, Ensure was surrounded by a group of chefs in the hotel's public toilet. When Amuro was pushed down by one of them, because the ground was too slippery, his body fell backward. The back of his head just happened to hit the corner of the sink. His skull cracked, and he died on the spot. Han Dong was very surprised by this story. After all, looking at the Butcher's appearance, he had thought that he was a maniac who beat people up in public toilets when he was alive. Since you've been recognized by Lord Hell, I'll help you. Are you going to attack Lighthouse now? I'll immediately bring the flesh and blood troops from the abyss and depart with you. Butcher Amuro pulled on the chainsaw in his hand, full of fighting spirit. This kind of reply was completely out of Han Dong's expectation. The Butcher, who he thought would be hard to negotiate with, turned out to be the easiest to negotiate with among all the ghost stories, and he showed a strong desire to help. There's no rush. Han Dong was slightly shocked by this kind of enthusiasm, and he hurriedly passed the proposal over. Based on the contents of the proposal, once Mr. Butcher sees the special signal on the lighthouse, immediately bring your Abyss army to support. If you succeed, I'll give you more land. The Butcher hurriedly waved his hands to reject. No need. Consider this a test from Lord Malone. After I complete this series of tests, I'll be able to follow Lord Malone to hell for real cultivation. I'm not interested in the land here. The Butcher's situation was similar to Mr. Ahas. Once he reached a higher level, he naturally would not be interested in the things before him. Okay, we still need to distribute this proposal to more ghost stories, so we won't stay for long. Even though the sparring in the public toilet had wasted a lot of time, from the result, it was definitely worth it. The Butcher made use of the public toilet's teleportation feature to allow Han Dong to leave from a relatively safe public toilet exit, and he continued his journey of distributing flyers. One day and one night, all the ghost stories of grade B and above that were marked on the Ghost Stories collection received flyers. However, Han Dong still had a special proposal in his hands that he wanted to give to a special existence. This special ghost story was categorized into the fourth category of the Ghost Stories collection, Vicious Neutral. It was different from neutral people like the Key Maker and the Collector. This special ghost story was neither a lighthouse nor a horror story, nor was it completely neutral. At the same time, it would hunt down ghost stories from both camps, and it was extremely aggressive and invasive. On a certain street in the theme park, while a team of doctors was searching for Han Dong and the others in a dark alley, a group of doctors suddenly appeared in front of them. Creak, creak. The sound of bones twisting came from the deepest part of the alley. Just as the eyes on the doctor's chest saw some kind of terrifying existence in the depths of the alley and wanted the team to escape quickly, a large number of arms grew out from the damp wall and dragged this powerful medical team in. It was also because of this thing's appearance. All the street lights in the street were extinguished. It seemed like she did not like lights. Nicholas, are you sure you want to give this thing the flyer? On the second floor across the street, Han Dong and Abel observed this scene with their night vision. The ghost story that swallowed the medical team in an instant was categorized into the fourth category. It was the scary female head that chased after Han Dong's group on the street at the beginning and forced the other ghost stories to stay away. Its head took up a total of 23 streets. On the Ghost Stories collection, it was named Head. This place is not far from Mr. Aha's shop. If the negotiation fails, we'll just run like last time. If we can pull this Head to the camp of horror stories, our chance of winning will increase greatly. Other than that, I'll go alone for this negotiation. Abel, be prepared to help me escape at any time. Just as Han Dong was resisting the great pressure and walking down the dark alley, splash, splash, suddenly it started to rain. The torrential rain instantly overflowed the streets with water, and there were not enough drainage openings to go around. This was a red umbrella spun down and landed in Han Dong's hands. A cold head immediately followed the umbrella and grew on Han Dong's shoulder. Long time no see. You? It was the first ghost story that Han Dong encountered, but it was in the outer layer. What's wrong? I told you we'll meet again. By the way, Mother is here. You look like you have something to discuss with her. I can bring you there. Mother has a bad temper, so you'd better watch your words. Mother? Chapter 347. Evil Neutral. The reason such an entity could exist in the theme park and not be forced to be treated at the lighthouse was because it was too powerful. Han Dong had written a private proposal that was extremely beneficial to the other party. He promised that after conquering the lighthouse, not only would this female head be given a large territory, but she would also be provided with various kinds of food regularly. However, Han Dong still believed that the possibility of reaching an agreement was less than 30%. However, before the negotiation, things ushered in a dramatic change. The seed that Han Dong had accidentally sowed earlier actually bore fruit. He did not expect that the red umbrella that he met at the outer area would be related to the Een head here, and they were even mother and son. When he stepped into the familiar alley, the sense of danger was still there. However, because Han Dong was holding the red umbrella in his hand, the thing hidden in the deepest part of the alley did not radiate any hostility. Just like that, Han Dong was able to enter the deepest part of the alley in a safe situation. Furthermore, Han Dong himself was curious as to how a giant head that could almost occupy the entire street was tied to this alley. "Mom, I brought back a friend." At the deepest part of the alley, there was no giant head that he expected to see. There was only a woman in a long black dress, standing there with her back against the wall. Crack, crack, crack. The head on her neck turned 180 degrees and stared at the incoming guest. Due to the habit of eating, the woman's mouth suddenly opened wide, and she wanted to eat Han Dong in one bite. Through her dark mouth, one could vaguely see that the interior was filled with densely packed heads and arms. It gave off the feeling of an inner space. Space element? No wonder. Because her daughter was there, the woman quickly suppressed her desire to eat. Her empty eyes stared at Han Dong. Contact with Ghost Stories. First woman has been made. Grade S. Rank 4th on the theme park's S-grade Ghost Stories ranking. Please proceed with caution. Faction. Neutral killing. First woman will obtain 100 Ghost Story points as a reward. Ghost Stories related to the deepest place. Wanted. The Devourer in theme park. Kill the First Lady and hand her body to either Lighthouse or Horror Stories. Affection will increase and reward money will be given. Second only to the collectors at the Waste Collection Station. They are ranked 4th. However, their overall level is one level lower than the collectors, belonging to the S-class. Han Dong lowered his head slightly and handed over the special proposal in his hand. When the first woman stretched out her hand, a series of coiled arms extended from her sleeves. He grabbed the book in Han Dong's hand, and without even looking at it, he swallowed a whole. "All right, Mother has already accepted your document. I'll talk to my mother about you. You should leave now. Mother's emotions are unpredictable sometimes. Even I have a hard time controlling her." After saying that, the red umbrella left Han Dong's hand and spun slowly in the rain before it floated into the hands of his mother. "Thank you." Han Dong thanked him and turned to leave the alley. During this time, his clothes were completely soaked in sweat. He felt like there were countless arms floating behind him. They would drag him into a huge mouth at any moment. Although her strength was weaker than the collector, the sense of danger exuded by the first woman was not weak at all. It was even scarier than the Lantern Man. When he walked out of the alley, Han Dong immediately gave an okay sign to Abel, who was lurking across the street. At this point, all the flyers had been distributed. It had been exactly 24 hours. According to the time agreed with the key craftsman, Han Dong returned to the lock building on time. However, click. When Han Dong used the correct key to open the correct door, he was shocked. He thought that the key craftsman had healed his injuries and was waiting for him inside. Who would have thought that the key room was a mess? Various metal fragments were scattered everywhere, and all the large gears were destroyed. A headless dwarf's body was severely twisted and burned and was abandoned on the ground. Even this couldn't fool the Lantern Man. Or all the individuals related to us, no matter the reason, will be killed. A tyrant's rule? Just as Han Dong frowned and was about to leave, he accidentally noticed something. He reached out to pick up the note sandwiched between the broken gears. "Bring my body to the key room and see me." When the two came to the key room on the top floor again, they faintly heard the sound of bones being processed from inside. When they opened the door, the head of the key craftsman was soaked in a glass cylinder. Through a spare mechanical body, the final key was created. This key seemed to be a bit different from the key Han Dong requested. Hateful. The Lantern Man wanted to kill me. Fortunately, I've already separated my head from my body. Moreover, he even destroyed all the important instruments in my key room. My foundation of 100 years was destroyed. I want revenge. Hurry up and give me my body. The key craftsman was completely enraged. When Han Dong handed over the twisted body of the key craftsman, he directly took the spine and added it to the production process. After a while, a biomedical key plated with a metal layer was created. This key is integrated with my anger. Not only can it achieve the requirements you want, but it can also add other effects. As long as your attraction method works, you can definitely seal other unrelated people outside. Thank you. When Han Dong took the key craftsman squeezed his palm. Promise me, you have to kill that arrogant guy. Okay. As the key was placed in his pocket, all the preparation work was completed. After returning to the shop for a short rest, the final battle of ghost stories officially began. Han Dong chose to challenge the 5-star difficulty, Lighthouse, to complete the high-tiered main storyline and obtain the corresponding node of the current area. Success or failure depended on whether the following plan could be carried out successfully. Granny, I'll leave it to you. Okay. What Han Dong asked Granny Origin to do was to have her exhaust almost all her energy to build a tunnel that led directly to the upper level of the lighthouse. She met up with the clown who was hiding in the experimental area and skipped the complicated process of sneaking into the lighthouse. When the granny drew this door out of thin air, her whole body immediately shriveled. Her energy had been exhausted to break through the barrier of the lighthouse. Mr. Aha brought over an inflatable device. As he inflated his wife, he waved goodbye to Han Dong and Granny Origin. Good luck. Before and after the door was pushed open, the warm and quiet shop immediately turned into the upper level of the lighthouse filled with screams of pain, the experimental area. A large number of ghost stories were strapped to the operating table with belts. Without any anesthesia, they were undergoing lobotomy. At this time, an attending doctor walked toward the equipment room where Han Dong and Granny Origin were. Chapter 348. Inside a small equipment room, the main doctor was injecting something into the patient with a needle. Once this ghost story extract is injected into your body, it will make you give off the presence of a normal ghost story. This is made from my bodily fluids and ghost story spinal cord. Haha. The main doctor was none other than Pennywise. Currently, he was injecting Abel with the ghost story extract. At the same time, he brought a patient's garb and a bracelet for identification. He disguised Abel as a patient. Han Dong used his camouflage power to switch identities with the clown to become the main doctor. As Han Dong fixed his white coat, he asked, "Have you dealt with all the sick rooms downstairs?" "Don't worry. Even the ghost stories that the parasites couldn't control have been dealt with using my own method. We're just waiting for you to make your move. Have you dealt with your own matter?" The bunch of people inside the sick rooms won't be able to cause much of a ruckus. As long as the Lantern Man deals with them personally, we'll be able to deal with them very soon. Han Dong gave an okay sign. Don't worry about me. By the way, how far are we from the top floor? There's still 21 floors left. In the middle, there's an experiment area and the management level. We'll be able to pass through with the identity card that I stole. Okay. Han Dong hung the card before his chest. Han Dong suddenly put on a serious expression and placed his palm on the clown's shoulder. Now, I need you to help me with something. Pennywise's arm was still weak. He quickly waved it off. I've already done enough. Don't tell me you want me to restrain the Lantern Man. I won't do something like that. No, I need you to go to the power station and cut off the city's power supply in half an hour. Oh, okay. As long as he could leave the dangerous lighthouse, the clown was more than willing. This meant that he wouldn't have to participate in the battle of the lighthouse anymore. I'm counting on you. Don't worry, I won't let you die in a place like this. The clown returned to the shop through the painted door and sneaked his way to the power station. Let's begin. Han Dong held a parasite in his hand. Splash. The parasite was dropped into a beaker filled with water. In an instant, it sucked up all the water. Activate. For a moment. At the bottom floor of the lighthouse, the Ghost Stories prison, all the ghost stories with parasites opened their eyes. Threads grew out from the eyes and mouths of these ghost stories, meaning that they had been deeply infested. Obtained strength enhancement. Hiss, he broke free from the binding of the bandage and landed steadily on the ground. Alarms rang from the monitoring device in the nurse's station. The purple-clothed head nurse, who had just advanced to S-class, suddenly received a report from her subordinate. Head nurse, the door lock of room 1319 has been forcefully destroyed. The detainment has failed. Wasn't it just suppressed? Why is the restraint failing again? Hurry up and send someone to deal with it. Use the enhanced bandage suit to restrain him. At this moment, a voice came from the other side. Reporting, head nurse. The containment of 0139, 0892, 0983 has failed. The patient has displayed a strong aggressiveness. Reporting, head nurse. The head nurse in purple immediately went to the main monitoring room. On the large monitor with the icons of all the wards. The originally green ward icons turned red within a few seconds as if they had been infected by a virus. This meant that the containment system had failed. It was an unprecedented riot in the lighthouse. What's going on? How did this happen? Even the head nurse herself was stunned for a long time. She only came back to her senses when she heard the medical staff's voice coming from the monitoring device. She immediately reached out and pressed the red button. The level 1 alarm was activated. The mechanical nurses who filled the first level all entered a berserk state. They no longer focused on containment. As long as the patient showed the slightest aggressiveness, they would slaughter them indiscriminately. We have to report this to the people in charge of the middle and upper levels. Have them mobilize all their forces and come to the bottom level to help suppress the situation. The head nurse hung up the phone and took out an origin scalpel from her mouth. Swoosh! A fearless ghost story that came to the nurse's station had its energy supply cut off by the head nurse. It was instantly killed, just as the head nurse stepped on the syringe floor and looked at the completely chaotic bottom level. Click, 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 the flashing red alarm, the lights in the nurse's station, and the searchlights used for auxiliary lighting were all extinguished at the same time. Power was completely lost. A strong sense of unease arose in the head nurse's heart. All of this was definitely not a coincidence. Perhaps when the first invaders arrived, the plan had already been slowly laid out in the dark. Click, click, click. It wasn't just the lighthouse. The entire park's power system was paralyzed. The main power station was filled with red balloons, and they were constantly self-destructing, destroying all kinds of electrical batteries and cables. The giant searchlight at the top of the lighthouse, which had not been extinguished for nearly 100 years, was also extinguished at this moment due to the main power supply being cut off. The park was plunged into absolute darkness. It would take another 5 minutes to activate the backup power inside the lighthouse. During this time, the entire park became restless. The first to react were the more than 10 public toilets inside the park. The public toilets made of cement melted completely under the high temperature, revealing a crimson abyss. A large number of hell monsters that came from the bottom of the abyss and were modified by the butcher crazily crawled out. Clang! A huge iron hook was thrown out from the bottom of the abyss and smashed into the ground. The butcher, who was holding the iron hook in one hand and a giant chainsaw in the other, flew out from the bottom of the abyss and landed heavily on the road, crushing the hanged people hanging from the street lamps. My army! Full attack! In the suburbs, in a huge waste collection station. The mountain of waste was all cleared in a short period of time. They were not thrown into a large crematorium to be burned. Instead, through a large number of black threads, these abandoned limbs were connected together to form a zombie suture army of 100,000 people. The collector, who was wearing a safe and a small vest, also took out the treasure that he had been collecting for a long time. The family of three, the 3 puppets that were connected by black threads, were floating next to the collector. Each puppet seemed to radiate the power of a grade S ghost story. That's right, they were all grade S ghost stories in the park, but they accidentally wandered into the waste collection station and were killed by the collector. Then, they were made into the most loyal and powerful servants. Splash, splash, when darkness engulfed the park. At the same time, the rain fell. Deep in the alley, a woman in black, holding an umbrella, was walking toward the lighthouse. Wherever this woman went, even the ghost stories from the horror stories, camp who were persuaded by Han Dong to attack the lighthouse all retreated. Once they got within 20 meters, they would be grabbed by a pale arm that grew out from ground. The next second, they would be thrown into the woman's mouth, leaving nothing behind. Chapter 349. At the top floor of Lighthouse. Through the emergency lights set up in the theme park, the lamp man understood everything that had happened. As expected, your goal is not just Mr. Aha and Granny Origin. You want to shake my power. Other than these two things that are a bit troublesome, everything else is not a problem. The two people mentioned by the lamp man naturally, it was the boss of the waste collection station. In name, he was called the Collector. In the ghost story community, he was known as the scary zombie demon. Everyone's expression changed when they talked about him. There was also the evil neutral, first woman, that Han Dong invited to help take over Lighthouse through coincidence. Since you want to party, I'll party with you once. The theme park hasn't been so lively for a long time. 100 years of foundation. Not to mention being in this theme park that was filled with dangerous ghost stories. The lamp man could build Lighthouse and perfect the management of the theme park. Naturally, he had various emergency measures to deal with dangerous situations. Those restless ghost stories that were captured to Lighthouse for treatment, was it really just to correct them on an ideological level? Please, this was not a normal society. The experimental area in the upper floor of Lighthouse hid an unspeakable secret. The lobotomy was just the first surgery. Then, the chief surgeon would suture a special substance produced by the lamp man into the subject's cranial cavity. A millimeter-level searchlight could be perfectly combined with the nerves in the cerebellum. When it was not activated, it would not affect any of the ghost stories' physiological activities. The ghost stories that underwent the surgery were sent to the psychological measurement area for the so-called psychological test. In reality, it was to check whether the miniature searchlights installed in their cranium were connected normally. Once they were connected normally, they would obtain the permission to leave Lighthouse and resume their normal life. Every once in a while, the searchlights in their cranium would be reviewed to ensure that they were working normally. Because of the large number of these miniature searchlights, the lamp man could access their perspective at any time and secretly monitor the overall movement of the theme park. Before some hidden roots could grow, they would be removed. Lighthouse was called Bright Eye, and these cranial searchlights were called Dark Eye. Together, they maintained the stability of the theme park. Its purpose was not only to spy in the dark, but also to deal with riots like the current situation. Light Source Plan the Lamp Man reached out to press the red button on the control panel. Instantly, the device corresponding to the button was activated. With the lighthouse as the center, the magnetic field that originally surrounded the lighthouse completely spread out and covered the inner area of the park. Be it those who had just been released by the lighthouse or those who had left the lighthouse for decades, they were all stunned at that moment. Following which, he held his head with both hands. He had a splitting headache and was bleeding from his 7 orifices, until their foreheads split open and a searchlight the size of a tennis ball grew out from between their eyebrows. The eyes of this group of ghost stories immediately became lifeless, turning into a kind of ghost story weapon that was directly controlled by the lighthouse. Through the conversion between bioenergy and electrical energy, the searchlight on the forehead could be permanently illuminated. At this moment, the completely dark paradise was completely lit up by tens of thousands of human-shaped searchlights. At the same time, the backup generator stored inside the lighthouse had reached its maximum power, and the power supply of the lighthouse had been restored. The searchlight at the top was already operating normally. Furthermore, all the elevators began to operate. What was important to note here was that the top floor of Lighthouse covered the 87th to 100th floor, which was the supervisory floor of Lighthouse. The entire theme park was not managed by the Lantern Man alone. Under his command, he also hired 12 supervisors. In the theme park, they were called the 12 supervisors by the ghost stories. They were all S-grade ghost stories, and they each had an office area on the top floor of the lighthouse. Other than their own power, there was also the support and enhancement of lighthouse technology. The 12 supervisors brought along a group of lighthouse guards to conduct a citywide suppression. Ding dong. At this time, the head nurse used the elevator to reach the top floor. Master Lantern, the situation at the bottom floor of the detention area is very bad. Master, please send 2 supervisors to assist in the suppression. This group of patients seems to have been infected with a type of parasite, and their internal potential has been completely stimulated, especially in the regenerative nature. It is very difficult to kill them with normal means, and we are lacking in manpower. Who knew? The Lantern Man was not worried at all. Let them do whatever they want. We only need to seal the connection ports of each floor. What we need to do now is not to suppress these small things, but to eliminate the main person who caused this riot. When the time comes, hang them one by one at the front door of the lighthouse, and everything will naturally calm down. We will slowly carry out the maintenance work later. Then now, what should I do? The Lantern Man reached out and hugged the head nurse, letting her sit on his lap. Purple, you stay here with me. If I'm not wrong, someone will secretly come to the top floor. When the time comes, you accompany me to quickly deal with them. Who dares to come directly to Master Lantern? Could it be that old man? When she thought of Mr. Aha, the head nurse seemed to have recalled some past events, and her face turned pale with fright. No, Mr. Aha will not do things that he is not confident in. Moreover, according to his personality, he will not participate in such a battle, and he will not look for trouble. Those who come to me are nothing more than small flies secretly causing this riot. Just slap them to death. Okay. During the riot, all work in the lighthouse experimental floor was temporarily suspended. The doctors also participated in the suppression of the bottom floor. At this time, a doctor seemed to be escorting a patient to the bottom floor. When he walked into the elevator, he pressed the button to go up to the top management level. With the senior doctor card in his pocket and perfect disguise, he successfully passed the identification. Ding! They arrived at the top floor. When the elevator door opened, it corresponded to a corridor that was covered with cables of various thickness. There are no defensive measures. It seems like the other party knows that we are coming. But it makes sense. This is the manager of the theme park, the second strongest person in the ghost story. He has the basic confidence to deal with nameless juniors like us. Abel, there is no need to disguise yourself. Han Dong stared at the sophisticated camera hidden in the cables and decisively removed the disguise to reveal his true form. He swaggered down the corridor that was covered with cables. The door of the lighthouse manager office was slightly open to welcome the visitors. When the door was pushed open, the Lantern Man was sitting on a chair that was assembled with countless cables. In the spacious room, countless searchlights were aimed at the Lantern Man, bathing him in the strong light and maintaining his strongest state. The head nurse stood behind him to provide support. In such an area, the Lantern Man could absorb electricity and light energy without limit. He was almost invincible. Even Mr. Aha would have a hard time defeating him. However, in Han Dong's trouser pocket, there was a key that could win by surprise. Chapter 350. In the hundreds of years since the establishment of Lighthouse, you are the first human who can reach this level and force me to use my foundation to suppress the riot. You should be proud. However, I can't figure out your last move. Why did you break into my office alone? Shouldn't you wait for the collector, butcher, or that terrible woman to arrive at Lighthouse before coming to find me together? For such a question, Han Dong didn't answer and didn't have the intention to chat with the Lantern Man. Instead, he took out the gold-plated key from his trouser pocket and immediately inserted it into the office door lock behind him. A wonderful change was taking place in the door lock. The key made by the key craftsman could change the lock, the door, and even the room. This key made according to Han Dong's request could achieve the effect of complete change. Click! He turned the key and reopened the door. Han Dong turned his head and directly said a sentence with a mocking effect. You think you're very powerful? You're just a forever second. A frog at the bottom of the well, like you can only be stepped on by Mr. Aha. Continue to enjoy your control of Lighthouse. I'm just here to see your failure. Bye. Without any hesitation, he pulled Abel and immediately walked out of the office. Han Dong did not make up this series of mocking words on the spot. Instead, it was something he had prepared after investigating and organizing his words. Die! The mocking worked. Such words aroused the anger deep in the Lantern Man's heart. In addition, the Lantern Man had absolute confidence in himself. He immediately got up and chased after them. Sir, their behavior is a little strange, the head nurse reminded. Since they have come to the top floor, where can they run to? Killing these two guys who caused the riot can also indirectly solve a lot of problems. Moreover, when they said that sentence, they were destined to die. The Lantern Man opened the office door and chased out of the top floor passage full of cables. The head nurse followed closely behind. But it was a little strange. The cable passage was just a transitional area between the elevator and the office, and the length was less than 30 meters. However, the Lantern Man ran for more than 100 meters in the cable passage, but he still couldn't see the elevator. Realizing the problem, the Lantern Man temporarily suppressed his anger. He waved his hand and tore the cable at the side. There was no electricity flowing inside. What's going on? When the Lantern Man released his perception, he realized that he was unable to contact Lighthouse. He had merely passed through a door. Could it be? The Lantern Man was quite familiar with some of the famous and unique ghost stories of the theme park. He immediately thought of the key maker he had killed 24 hours ago. Although gnome locksmiths were only grade A, they were a very special existence. These guys really do have a close relationship with the key maker in private. A space constructed through keys? Why can it affect me? Due to the difference in levels, the effect of the keysmith ability on me should be very weak. Just as the Lantern Man tried to turn back, he found that the road behind him was blocked by numerous cables. At this moment, the cable beneath their feet split open. The Lantern Man and the head nurse fell almost 100 meters and landed steadily in a room built by gears. It was embedded with various large gears of different sizes. If they were not careful, they would be sucked into it and torn to pieces. In fact, even Han Dong was a little surprised. His request was only for the key maker to create a space key that could lead the Lantern Man to an independent space isolated from Lighthouse. The Lantern Man must not have any extra resources and be prohibited from achieving the two characteristics of energy conversion and light source regeneration. Only then could the Lantern Man be completely killed. However, even if he fell into such an independent space, the Lantern Man was still absolutely confident. After all, the enemy here was neither Mr. Aha, the collector, nor the first woman. This kind of little brat who only knew how to escape on the streets and rely on the butcher to escape danger was not to be feared at all. Han Dong's vision. First, I designed a completely overlapping cable channel to pass through. Then I installed a gear space for complete isolation. Double insurance. Is this the gift of the locksmith? This way, I can completely calm down and solve this incident. Han Dong began to stretch his muscles. To be honest, except for the unequal battle in Hell's Gate, where Han Dong used all his strength, Han Dong had held back in other situations. For this full 5 stars event, Han Dong prepared a lot. When he heard that the highest reward for clearing the event would be 3 destiny points, Han Dong was determined to get it. If he wanted to cultivate a secondary profession, he must have more destiny points than others. Abel, are you going to deal with the head nurse? No. I'll deal with the Lantern Man. I don't have the confidence to kill the Lantern Man, but I believe that you should be able to deal with the head nurse faster than me. Turn the situation into 2 against 1. Okay. Han Dong inserted the key in his hand into the gap between the gears on the ground again. This was another big gift from the key maker. This key could make limited changes to the space at any time. Click. As the key turned, the gears in the whole room also turned. It directly separated the internal personnel. Han Dong looked directly at the head nurse, who was wearing a purple dress and holding a syringe. He felt that she was fundamentally different from the head nurse, who was dozens of meters tall. She had advanced and sublimated. Although compared to the Lantern Man, the head nurse was easier to deal with. But no matter what, she was still an S-grade ghost story, the symbol of the highest combat power in the Ghost Stories event. She was not someone that could be dealt with so easily. You guys are really brave. You actually dared to go directly to Master Lantern. I'll inject you with a tranquilizer and then slowly dissect your body. Finally, I'll turn you into a specimen and hang you at the front door of the lighthouse to warn the mob that dares to challenge Master Lantern's authority. Ha ha! The head nurse let out a strange laugh and moved extremely quickly. She even formed many purple shadows in the gear's space. Her speed was unbelievably fast. Grabbing the blind spot behind Han Dong, the purple shadows immediately attacked. The syringe in her hand had already been aimed. Once it was injected into Han Dong's body, the battle would be over. However, just as the head nurse approached Han Dong from the blind spot, a wave of high temperature hit him. Lava patterns appeared on the surface of Han Dong's G-arm. The G-virus's characteristic could withstand such high-temperature lava. Through infinite regeneration, it counteracted the lava's damage to the flesh. Clang, clang, clang. The iron chain that should have belonged to Togu was wrapped around Han Dong's arm. See-through, Han Dong immediately turned around and slapped the head nurse who attacked him. Under the cover of the iron chain, the enlarged G-arm knocked away the syringe in the head nurse's hand and grabbed her body. Chun-Li, do it. The red coat appeared. The bloodshot eyes under the black hair stared at the head nurse. A knife cut the watermelon in half. Chapter 351. Even though her head was cut open, the head nurse was still able to emit a super high-frequency sound wave from her throat. Han Dong and Chun-Li frantically retreated and covered their ears with their hands. Even so, they were still affected by the sound wave, and a large number of capillaries in their heads were shattered. Blood flowed out from the corners of their eyes, and their brains buzzed. Han Dong endured the pain and discovered that there was a stethoscope embedded in the head nurse's throat. It seemed that the sound wave was emitted through this instrument. Creak! A light yellow syringe was injected into the head nurse's body by herself. The syringe took effect, and the evil energy in the cut wound was quickly neutralized. Creak, creak, creak. A large number of fleshy tentacles grew on the surface of the wound, intertwining with each other and reconnecting the cut wound, restoring it to its original state. However, the head nurse's hair was disheveled, and the scar on the wound was difficult to remove. It was obvious that Chun-Li's wound wasn't light. At the same time, the head nurse revealed a fearful expression. She no longer held back, and a large amount of purple aura overflowed from her body. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A total of 8 metal arms made of scalpels grew from her back. This form was somewhat similar to Mia's spider form. Han Dong didn't care about the head nurse's physical technique ability at all. He was only concerned about the sound wave, just now. At the same time, he warned Chun-Li, Miss Chun-Li, the head nurse might still emit that kind of sound wave when she attacks. Once there's a chance, aim directly at her throat. If the sound wave ability can't be contained, we'll be in danger. Okay, Chun-Li immediately hid in the dark, looking for an opportunity to cut the head nurse's throat. Han Dong copied Togu's movements and threw the chain in his hand. Clang, clang, clang. However, the chain's flying speed and throwing angle weren't as fast as Togu's. Bang! The scalpel leg that grew out of the head nurse's back easily bounced off the chain and immediately attacked Han Dong. With the help of the scalpel leg, her movement speed was even faster than before. See-through. Since he had sparred with Mia many times in the academy, Han Dong was able to dodge the head nurse's spider-like attacks with ease. Just as the head nurse was crazily attacking Han Dong, an opportunity. Chun-Li found an opening and immediately attacked from behind. The kitchen knife was pointed at the back of his neck. Bang! What? When the kitchen knife cut open the skin on the back of his neck, a layer of alloy was embedded in the inner layer, specifically used to protect the back of the neck. The stethoscope between the laryngeal tubes finished cooling down. As the vocal cords vibrated, the stethoscope and the special structure of the vocal tract once again emitted a high-frequency scream. Chun-Li was shaken to the point of bleeding from her 7 orifices. She immediately covered her ears and retreated. Using the vibrations of the high-frequency sound waves, the head nurse planned to kill Han Dong first before dealing with the woman in red behind him. Facing the 8 long legs made of scalpels coming from different directions, Han Dong, who was covering his ears, felt helpless. He thought to himself, "That's right. I didn't think I would need to use the pupil seal's ability to deal with this head nurse, and I thought I would try my best to conserve my stamina to deal with the Lampman." Just as Han Dong suddenly swung his right arm and prepared to use his Jiarm, which was wrapped in iron chains, to deflect the scalpels coming from all directions. Then, he would use his little magic eye to look at the target at close range. Who would have thought that something unexpected would happen? Bang! Han Dong swung his right arm and collided head-on with the scalpels. The Rolex on his wrist emitted a very clear ticking sound. Effect trigger. With every attack, there is a certain probability of summoning Mr. Aha's Phantom to assist in battle. Lasts for 30 seconds. The hunched Mr. Aha quickly appeared at the side with the reflection of the watch. It was both real and illusory. It was a type of doppelganger mechanism that was engraved on the watch. Mr. Aha. When the head nurse saw the Phantom, she was so frightened that the scalpels on her body trembled nonstop. "No, this isn't the real body. I can't let down Mr. Lamp's expectations." The head nurse's eyes were bloodshot and frenzied. She ignored the phantom of Mr. Aha and prepared to kill Han Dong first. Who would have thought that, while she was hesitating, Mr. Aha's phantom had already closed in on her? The seemingly thin body swung out a quick punch that even Han Dong couldn't see clearly. Crack! The head nurse's head was directly twisted and split open from the point of impact. Then Mr. Aha raised his long leg that was wearing flip-flops and slammed it down like a tiger's head. Crash! Only a pile of broken parts was left on the ground. At the same time, a purple crystal bead fell out and rolled out. A newly formed S-grade ghost story, and the inner crystal core hasn't been digested. How rare. If you take this back, you can exchange it for a large number of ghost story points from me. With Mr. Aha's signal, Han Dong picked up the crystal bead and secretly extracted the head nurse's cell essence at the same time. I didn't expect you to have already reached the top floor of the lighthouse and used the key maker's isolation key. Good luck. I'll cheer you on. Let me remind you, the watch's built-in cooldown to summon my doppelganger is 1 hour. So if the Lampman is next door, you'll have to rely on yourselves. 30 seconds was up. Mr. Aha's phantom immediately disappeared. Wow, this scammer. Han Dong stared at the purple crystal bead in his hand and the tube of cell essence that he had extracted from the head nurse. The head nurse is not bad. She knows various medical methods and the use of various equipment. With the support of this core crystal bead, combined with the cell culture method and Professor Swollen's technology, she should be able to revive and become the professor's assistant to manage the Manor's underground lab. This was a good reward. However, now is not the time to look at the reward. Abel didn't know whether he could hold on or not. In the battle with the Lampman, if you can't keep up with the rhythm, it won't be as simple as being injured, you'll die. There was no rest. After confirming with Chun-Li in the corner, Han Dong immediately removed the isolation structure of the gear room. Kacha-kacha. As the thick wall of gears fell, Han Dong's expression changed drastically. There was no time to think. Caw! Crow's caw. He spread out 2 crow's wings and tore apart the cables that wrapped around Abel's body as fast as he could. He hugged Abel, whose body was severely burnt, and retreated. The situation was different from what he had imagined. This was supposed to be a gear room made by the keymaker, but it was filled with all kinds of cables. If one observed carefully, they would notice that there were tens of centimeters of wires growing out from the bottom of the Lampman's feet every second. It was a physical territory. Even if it was isolated, the Lampman could still create a territory that was beneficial to him. Abel, who was held in front of Han Dong, was burned in many places. Even after drinking a bottle of healing medicine, the situation was still not good. More importantly, there were wires running through many of the wounds, which continued to destroy the flesh. Chun-Li, Pick out the wires and Abel's wounds one by one. If it doesn't work, just cut out his flesh. He won't be in any danger if he drags on. Okay. Staring at the wires in the gear room, Han Dong gritted his teeth slightly. If he was not careful in the upcoming battle, everything would be over. Chapter 352. Electric arcs pulsed. Countless cables swam on the ground, covering the entire gear room. Raven Domain. Han Dong unleashed a domain unique to himself under the control of the Crow Men. Black plague threads spread out from under his feet, covering an area of about 2 meters around him. In addition, there would be the silhouettes of crows floating in this area from time to time. Under such a domain, the cables swimming on the ground could not get close to Han Dong. Of course, the seed's energy was being rapidly consumed every second. When he saw the black filth emitted by Han Dong, the combination of plague and pollution, the Lantern Man revealed a slightly fearful expression. After all, this was the only source of danger that the Lantern Man could sense from Han Dong. At the same time, Han Dong was very clear about one thing. The rating of Lantern Man was set as Super 5 stars by the system, which was equivalent to a monster of fate that only an official knight could fight against. If he wanted to kill someone of a higher realm, he would have to rely on the power outside the city. Mr. Han Dong, do you need my help? No. You take care of Abel. Pull out all the cables in his body. We can't let anything happen to Abel. Just leave this to me. All right. Han Dong took a deep breath. Actually, Han Dong wasn't confident at all when he was fighting against the Lantern Man. Han Dong's little magic I couldn't see through the Lantern Man's body structure. Every time he tried to pry into its structure, there would always be a strong light emitting from the Lantern Man's body. Not only was it impossible to see clearly, but it also made little magic I very uncomfortable. This was the first type of monster life form that little magic I was unable to analyze. Therefore, when Han Dong faced the Lantern Man, his third eye was always closed. Currently, Lantern Man, who had fought with Abel for a while, had already taken off his tight shirt. He revealed his strong body that he had obtained from fusing with his clone in the Supervision Center. There were also some metal cables going in and out of his 8-pack abs, and a large amount of strong electric arcs were moving between his flesh, giving him a feeling of being mechanically modified. Incomparably powerful. Once you find the right opportunity, you must attack multiple vital points at the same time to ensure that nothing goes wrong. There's no assistance from Chun-Li or Tugu. If we want to find an opportunity, we can only use underhanded methods. His right arm enlarged. An eyeball representing the G-virus grew on the top of his right arm. Due to the fusion with the plague doctor's dagger, his fingernails were replaced with a black metal. A meaty wound grew out of the palm of his left arm, capable of releasing a black plague. Black filth, pure black energy shot out from his palm. Accordingly, the Lantern Man didn't have any intention of dodging. Similarly, he stretched out his arm, and the searchlight in his palm shot out a powerful light that could instantly vaporize flesh. When the two energies collided head-on, they were actually evenly matched. If the battle of energy continued, Han Dong would definitely lose. After all, in terms of energy storage, even without the support of the lighthouse, the Lantern Man was still much more powerful than Han Dong, a trainee knight. Therefore, Han Dong instantly increased his energy output by 2 times. Boom! The energy impact point exploded. Taking advantage of the gap between the energy explosion, Han Dong released the black filth energy in the form of a flock of crows through the technique of the occult. Black plague crows, caw, 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 from a meaty wound on his left palm. A large number of crows made of black filth flew out crazily. They could drill into the target's body and cause internal contamination. They could also peck the target's flesh through their sharp beaks. They could also interfere with the target's movement and vision through group activities. When dozens of crows surrounded the Lantern Man, Han Dong flapped his wings and quickly approached. Looking for an opportunity, he used his huge metallized right arm to try to tear apart the Lantern Man's body. At the moment when Han Dong flapped his wings and approached the Lantern Man, Light explosion buzz, with the Lantern Man as the center. More than 100,000 lumens of light burst out from his body, instantly annihilating all the crows that surrounded him. The light explosion also worked on Han Dong's body. Sizzle. White smoke rose, and the feathers hanging on Han Dong's bone wings all evaporated. Even the bone wings were burnt and temporarily lost the ability to fly. Other than the main body that was protected by the bone feather coat, the other parts of the body that were exposed were all exposed. The rest of the exposed parts were deeply burned. Han Dong quickly activated a portion of the G-virus's characteristics, allowing the burned parts to quickly regenerate. When the light explosion ended, Han Dong was gripped by the Lantern Man's neck and then stepped onto the ground. The cables on the ground immediately bound Han Dong's neck, wrists, and ankles, completely sealing his movement. Since he easily suppressed Han Dong, the Lantern Man did not kill him immediately. Due to his arrogance, he habitually introduced himself when he suppressed his opponent. I'm the rarest light element ghost story, and I have perfectly combined with humanity's most advanced electrical technology. One of the purposes of the surveillance center was to imprison those ghost stories that would interfere with my rule of the theme park. And the real purpose, if you were smarter, you should have noticed, is to strengthen myself. To make me better at hunting in enclosed and dark spaces, to give me a stronger physical body. You bunch of overconfident outsiders. What are you going to use to shake my 100-year-old foundation? Han Dong, whose face was completely burnt and his chest was pressed by the foot, blood kept flowing out from the corner of his mouth. With great difficulty, he said a few words. In terms of strength, you are indeed stronger. But Mr. Aha said that you have a fatal weakness. Ruling the theme park for 100 years without anyone being able to shake you. This kind of absolute dominance, combined with your own personality, has caused you to develop an absolutely arrogant and conceited personality. The fact that you did not kill me immediately is a sign of your arrogance. Eye-opening little magic eye and the Lantern Man looked at each other, and a petal-like eye mark appeared. For a moment, the Lantern Man fell into a crazy illusion. The fishy smell of the sea fish, the whispers of the crazy demon, the slippery touch of the body engulfed his whole body. Gurgle, gurgle. Han Dong suddenly drank a healing potion and broke free from the wire. He flapped his damaged bone wings and flew behind the Lantern Man. The tentacle ability was fully activated. It was no longer as simple as growing tentacles from his palm. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The slippery and sticky flesh split open. Under Crowman form, Han Dong's right arm, the palm area quickly split open. Tentacle transformation. His right arm turned into 3 spotted tentacles with crows' heads on top. They suddenly shot out. In an instant, they pierced through the Lantern Man's head, heart, and abdomen. At a visible rate, the puncture point began to decay and decay. The corruption effect was very strong, but since he couldn't see the Lantern Man's body structure, these 3 parts didn't seem to belong to his core. His body was currently being corrupted and decayed. A small searchlight fell from the Lantern Man's right chest. Thud. When the small searchlight fell, it was immediately wrapped by the cables on the ground and reformed into a new body belonging to the Lantern Man. He was only 1 step away from killing the Lantern Man, but Han Dong had used up all of his stamina at this moment. Han Dong's domain, Crowman form, light explosion, and the use of the tentacles had used up all of his stamina. Crowman form was dispelled. Han Dong's entire body was separated from his body, and he laid limply on the ground, unable to move at all. He could only watch as the Lantern Man reformed his body with an unwilling expression. At this moment, Han Dong noticed a white mist appearing around him. The environment seemed to be changing. Am I seeing things? Because of his blurred vision, he felt like he was in the middle of a forest. The cables on the ground were covered by fallen leaves. Currently, everyone was facing a large beast's den. While the Lantern Man was reforming his body, some terrifying beast seemed to be about to appear from the beast's den. Chapter 353. It was mentioned in the previous chapter Abel was related to Captain Kai Meng by blood, so he had been in the Behemoth Knight Regiment for a long time. Occasionally, he would follow the members of the Behemoth Knight Regiment on some simple and low-risk missions. For years ago, a major event had occurred. After that incident, Abel was completely prohibited from leaving the city with the members of the Behemoth Knight Regiment. It wasn't until the recent elite training that he left the city in a reasonable way as a trainee knight. 4 years ago, Abel, who was 16 years old, was already familiar with most of the knights in the Behemoth Knight Regiment. Because the lookout of the Holy City found some signs of stones moving in the forest about 30 kilometers away from the West City Gate, they suspected that there was a gathering of wild monsters. Therefore, they sent 3 knights from the Behemoth Knight Regiment to investigate and deal with this matter. 30 kilometers was a safe area. It must be known that the Stuart Manor that was chosen for the last training was more than 60 kilometers away. Generally speaking, because of the unique structure of the city wall, the creatures outside the city hated the metal copper and generally wouldn't come within 50 kilometers. Incidents like this were usually easy to deal with. They only needed to run over and investigate. What they encountered were usually some low-level wild monsters or evil creatures that went the wrong way. They could easily complete the mission by killing them and even exchange for a good reward. Abel had followed the Behemoth Knight Regiment out of the city for investigation cases like this that happened within the safe area no less than 5 times. Captain Kai Meng used his authority to let Abel be one step ahead of his peers to familiarize himself with the environment outside the city in advance, adapt to the pollution in advance, and train his survival ability outside the city in advance. The 16-year-old Abel put on the goggles and set off with the 3 knights. The 3 knights were all young knights that joined the Behemoth Knight Regiment for less than 3 years. They were only 10 years older than Abel and had a good relationship in private. Abel would privately ask them some small questions about beast control. However, as the carriage drove into the forest and reached the area 30 kilometers away, there was suddenly no news. Even when the lookout used the eye ability, they couldn't see any traces of the carriage. It was as if the carriage disappeared into thin air after entering the stone array. This matter was immediately sent back to the Behemoth Knight Regiment. Soon, Captain Kai Meng, who was riding a mammoth, personally set off, trampled the trees along the way, and arrived at the scene. He actually smelled the scent of the hybrid demons in the rubble. These seemingly haphazardly placed rubble actually formed an entrance to a kind of overlapping space. When the carriage entered, it directly entered the inner space. When Commander Kai Meng personally stepped into the broken stone space, he discovered that this space was faintly showing signs of collapse, and the interior was filled with a fishy smell. The 3 official knights were already dead. Their beastly bodies had been smashed into pieces by all kinds of rocks. Small pieces of rocks had even cut into their bones. There was no way to save them. Searching for the violent bestiality in the air, he found a berserk beast in the center of the overlapping space. It was cutting some kind of stone life with its sharp claws. The stone attribute hybrid demon that created the overlapping space was heavily injured by the 3 knights and was completely torn apart by the beast. When the berserk beast smelled another life form approaching, it actually revealed the ferocious appearance of a primitive beast and immediately pounced towards Commander Kai Meng. Of course, because the difference in level was too great, Commander Kai Meng immediately suppressed him to the ground with a single hand. However, the berserk beast was not willing to be outdone. It continued to bite Captain Keeman's arm. It was only until Kai Mon had fully activated the behemoth bloodline in his body that he managed to suppress the primitive bestial nature of the berserk beast back into his body. Pieces of bone and fur fell off. The one who was suppressed under Commander Kai Meng's hand was the unconscious Abel Ryan. For this incident, Commander Kai Meng used his connections to erase all information about Abel from the records of this incident. No one knew that Abel had completely gone berserk. It was also after this incident. Commander Kai Meng realized the problem and started to have Abel undergo all kinds of control training. The main goal was to control the primitive bestial nature in his body. Secondly, It was to learn and train various skills. Abel's true potential made him happy and worried at the same time. At the moment, the world of ghost stories, the core building, the top floor of the lighthouse. Han Dong released the advanced tentacle transformation ability in an attempt to kill the Lantern Man, but failed. Abel, who was being taken care of by Chun-Li, was already in a weakened state. Looking at the terrible situation in front of him and seeing Han Dong not far away from him, he couldn't help but recall the scene of the 3 young knight seniors being killed by the hybrid demons. I have to go berserk while retaining a trace of consciousness. I can't go berserk completely. I have to bring Nicholas back to the holy city. I have to do it. For a moment, Abel's aura changed. His pupils gradually faded and turned into 2 pure white pupils. The white mist covering his body became visible to the naked eye due to the increasing concentration. It even gradually solidified, like layers of thin white armor covering Abel's body. The layered structure gave off the feeling of a light, self-adapting exoskeleton armor. The coverage of the armor on his limbs was extremely high. It also formed a special structure at the tip of his fingers, air claw, a highly concentrated, powerful wind attribute claw that was invisible to the naked eye. At the same time, there was a white tail dragging on the ground, allowing Abel to stabilize his body's center of gravity while moving at high speed. This posture was different from when Abel went berserk. At least for now, Abel was still a human. When he went berserk, it could be said that he was completely devoured by his primitive bestial nature and lost his human form. This posture was the result of Abel learning control for a long time and gradually controlling the bestial nature in his body. In the midst of madness, he retained a certain level of consciousness. Just when the wires wrapped around the core searchlight and the Lantern Man was halfway through its rebirth, the beast attacked. You're not dead yet. When the Lantern Man, with only half of his body left, felt the beast's aura, he used the light explosion ability again, trying to buy as much time as possible for his body to heal completely. When more than 100,000 lumens of light was released from his body, Abel curled his body into a ball and used the beast armor covering the surface of his body to block it. Sizzle. Part of the beast armor immediately evaporated under the light. However, Abel did not stop at all. He ignored the pain and forcefully blocked the light explosion as he approached the Lantern Man that had yet to fully regenerate. Air Claw. The cables that formed the Lantern Man's body were all cut to less than 1 centimeter. The resurrected Lantern Man was about to be completely cut into pieces. At the critical moment, Han Dong shouted with all his strength, "Abel, give me the searchlight." Abel, who still had a trace of consciousness, successfully received the message. He pulled out the small searchlight from the deepest part of the cable and quickly threw it to Han Dong. The searchlight was caught by Han Dong's hand. A tentacle directly ignored the searchlight cover and directly reached inside, polluting, corroding, and annihilating the Lantern Man as consciousness. Lantern Man, the theme park manager, died. Destiny material, lamp tube, has been acquired. Chapter 354. On the open street, directly opposite the lighthouse. The collector, who was wearing a small vest and a safe on his head, was the first to arrive. On the thin line that could be retracted at will, there were already 3 heads that belonged to the 12 managers of the lighthouse. Even though they were both S-grade ghost stories, there was a fundamental difference in strength. Just as the collector was about to officially step into the lighthouse, something seemed to fall from the top of the lighthouse that towered into the clouds. Clang! Clang! The searchlights from the lighthouse man's office all fell to the ground. Then, from the loudspeaker at the top of the lighthouse came a voice that was not very standard Japanese. "Lighthouse man, Kanjima Soichiro is dead. Now I officially take over the lighthouse. As for the ghost stories that once belonged to Kanjima Soichiro, as long as you expose your body to the searchlights of the lighthouse, you will be pardoned, and all your responsibilities will not be pursued. Those who try to resist will have their souls destroyed, and will never be reincarnated. As soon as that was said, the atmosphere of the entire theme park immediately changed. The managers who were still alive knew very well that such a loudspeaker was installed in the lighthouse man's office, and their connection with the lighthouse man had been completely cut off at that moment. The manager who had dominated the lighthouse for 100 years had died. Half an hour later, the office at the top of the lighthouse. Han Dong sat in an office that was full of broken cables. There was only one searchlight left to provide light. In front of him, the collector, who was ranked third among the ghost stories, the head woman, who was ranked fifth, and the butcher, who was ranked 10th, were all gathered there. Since Soichiro is dead, Lord Hell's test for me is also over. I'll go back first. The butcher looked like he could not wait to rush back to the public toilet. He did not need any territorial reward from Han Dong at all. After all, his real journey to hell was about to begin. After the butcher left, Han Dong looked at the two S-grade ghost stories that had helped him take over the lighthouse. Although I've obtained the control of the lighthouse and the theme park, I won't stay here. I'll have to trouble the collector to help me manage the entire theme park. I'll transfer most of the authority to you. Other than that, I'll abolish all the functions of the lighthouse regarding imprisonment and treatment of ghost stories. But I'll still keep the surveillance center and set up a trial. Ghost stories that purposely disrupt the order of the theme park and endanger the development of the theme park will be put on trial. As for the other details, I'll leave them to collector. In short, it should be as harmonious as possible under complete supervision. The collector slightly lowered his head and gladly accepted the arrangement. After all, he was also ambitious. Then he took the key to the lighthouse and sealed it in an important safe. Then Han Dong turned to the chief woman, who was dressed in black and exuded a terrifying aura. First Lady, I've decided to hand over the management of the outer area of the park to you. There are countless toys outside for you to play with. The humans in this world will also regularly send death row prisoners into the park, which should be able to satisfy your needs and desires. Of course, if you want to stay in the original alley, I won't force you. I want. His voice trembled. It was as if thousands of heads were speaking at the same time. This was the first time this terrifying woman had spoken. All right, it's settled then. Once the First Lady was in charge of the outer areas of the theme park, the death row prisoners sent by the humans would basically be sent to their deaths. There was basically no need to consider the risk of them completely invading. At the moment when the Lantern Man was killed, Han Dong received a system notification. The advanced main mission had been completed. The node, Ghost Stories Theme Park, had been opened. After clearing other Destiny events, Han Dong could choose to go to the theme park and do whatever he wanted. The details of the rental would have to wait until the reward was settled. After dealing with the matters at the lighthouse, Han Dong returned to the shop to return the Rolex to Mr. Aha. Although Mr. Aha was a bit of a scammer, due to the effect of the watch, Han Dong basically killed the head nurse without expending any energy. Yo, you must have obtained quite a lot of things. Before you leave, do you want to use the trash you obtained from the lighthouse to exchange for ghost story points from me? Before you leave, you still want to scam me? Mr. Aha laughed awkwardly. Now that he was Han Dong's best friend, he naturally would not force a deal. As for Han Dong, due to killing the Lantern Man, his Enables team's total points had exceeded 200. Before leaving, Han Dong pulled Mr. Aha to the side and asked about leaving and taking in. Actually, Han Dong, who had obtained the theme park node, was not in a hurry. Once Han Dong upgraded his brain and opened the third prison, he could come to the theme park at any time. If Mr. Aha was willing, then he would take him in. If not, Han Dong had other options. At least, Granny Origin and the Collector were good choices. After everything was settled, Han Dong and Abel chose to end the mission. Left the Ghost Stories space calculating team after change accumulated Ghost Stories points. 213 evaluation. Death row prisoner rewards given. Fate points 3. Card of Fate Seed, Ghost Stories Advanced Souvenir Additional Reward. Unlock and complete advanced main mission theme park node in the blink of an eye. Han Dong returned to the familiar white space. The harvest this time was unprecedentedly bountiful. Even Han Dong, was grinning from ear to ear. After all, other than the reward on the surface, Handong also brought some private goods. The value of the searchlight that belonged to the Lantern Man was terrifyingly high. Are you willing to rent the theme park node to the Destiny space? The yearly rental, 50 fate points. Things to know: 1. The lease is calculated on a yearly basis. If the lease is less than a year, you cannot enter the node. 2. Every year, you need to enter the corresponding node in the Destiny space to renew the lease. Are you willing to rent? Yes. Handong was naturally willing. 50 fate points a year was not a small amount. Moreover, Handong would not go to the theme park whenever he had nothing to do. Once a year was good. After all, Handong's main focus was still in the real world. The lease has taken effect. The theme park node has been closed. Next was the most normal part of the distribution of fate points. Handong only needed to allocate a point in mysticism to reach the seed-breaking stage. Once he successfully broke the seed through a special method, he would become an official knight. But Handong went straight to the Gate of Destiny library, which was made of mud and had the imprint of 3 books on the door. Handong threw all the 3 fate points he had obtained from clearing the dungeon perfectly into the game. Next, when we return to the Holy City, I need Brother Demps to bring me to the library. Chapter 355. Remaining 3 fate points. Do you wish to invest all of them into library? Hint: it has been detected that your current major, mysticism, has not reached 5 fate points. It is recommended that you invest all of your fate points into it. Why didn't Handong invest 1 point into mysticism to reach the seed-breaking stage before investing 2 points into the library to unlock his second profession? This involved the problem of experience and balance. First of all, it was based on the experience of Great Plague Master. When he majored in the Crusader army, before his points were allocated, he invested points into mysticism on his own accord due to his personal interest. This point needed to be taken into consideration. Subsequently, both of them reached the seed-breaking stage. Secondly, the problem of balance was also very important. From the perspective of Handong's profession, when he was alive, all substances had to be balanced before they could continue to grow. If 2 seeds were to grow in Handong's head at the same time, one of them would break the seed-breaking stage or completely suppress the other, making it difficult for the 2 to fuse. Balance was the important prerequisite for growing together. Handong was fixed to the metal chair. When various metal tubes and syringes were connected and the second seed grew in his head, Handong could clearly feel a change. His brain had been broadened and could store more energy. Of course, this was only a change in quantity. The newly generated seed corresponded to library. Handong currently did not have any techniques to use it. Thinking about it, perhaps some spells that involve crows could be refined through the techniques in the library. It was even possible to hide all kinds of harmful spells in the crows. Just as Handong felt refreshed and was about to get up from the chair, additional energy source detected in the brain. Cell load limit increased. 200, 300, huh? The cell load limit had always been a big problem that troubled Handong. Originally, according to the notification, he needed to break the seed-breaking stage to greatly increase it. Cell load limit itself is a simple problem of load. It's the same as eating as many bowls of rice. Only when my body improves will the cell load limit increase. Otherwise, if it continues to increase endlessly, I will be equipped with all kinds of strange limbs. In the end, it will cause my body to be unable to bear it and self-destruct, or even suffer a backlash. The regulation of the cell load limit is equivalent to a protective measure. Such an unexpected gain made Handong both shocked and excited. 100 points of weight limit. I can work on my body again. If I had known this would happen, I would have used a few extra limbs in ghost stories. But now that I think about it, the body in ghost stories is not really suitable for me. Only the collector's arm is suitable for suturing, and the rest are more suitable for the school of necromancy and hell. Since the right hand corresponded to physics, regeneration, and plague, Then if I want to achieve balance, my left arm should lean more towards the library. Han Dong's mind flashed with scenes from some fantasy movies. Voldemort and Greenwald from the Harry Potter movie. Imhotep from The Mummy. If he could cut off one of these black magician's arms and attach it to Han Dong's body, he would be able to practice the abilities of the library with half the effort. Why was he always thinking of villains? This was because Han Dong's core ability was inseparable from the pollution outside the city. Let's go back and think about it in detail. Next, they were the other two rewards for completing the perfect clearance. 1. Cards of Fate. As before, he could choose any one of the 4 golden cards on the table. Considering the issue of his limbs, Han Dong might enter a destiny realm in the near future. Therefore, he chose the Holy Grail card. Cards of Fate. Scepter gives the power to spy on the label. When an individual enters the image shop to select a destiny event, they will be able to see the label of each destiny event. For example, illusion type, curse type, monster type. This is good stuff. At least it will allow me to filter out the destiny events that I'm not good at. After collecting the cards of fate, another black plastic bag appeared on the crystal table. It corresponded to a high-class souvenir from Ghost Stories. Han Dong had always been curious about what a souvenir would be. Just as he excitedly opened the black plastic bag, what corresponded to was a pure gold statue of Mr. Aha. This made Han Dong speechless. Souvenir, Mr. Aha's gold statue, can be brought out of the Destiny realm and can be exchanged for 20 points. Exchange. Han Dong exchanged for the statue without hesitation. Although he was speechless, it was still a good thing to have some points. When he left the white room where the rewards were calculated, he immediately met the clown who was locked up in the small black room. The system determined. The clown was Han Dong's living possession. Therefore, when Han Dong was calculating the rewards, he would definitely be taken out of the Ghost Stories world. However, the clown could not spy on the situation inside the Destiny Station. He could only be locked up in this small black room and wait for Han Dong to complete the calculation. He drifted in the gravity-free space and approached the point device that was similar to a Dyson sphere. This time, I am working for you and completely messing up Lighthouse from the inside. You should keep your promise to me, right? Of course, the next time you enter an interesting Destiny realm, you have to let me out again. The promise to the clown was very simple. Every time Han Dong encountered something, he had to let the clown out to have fun. This promise would last until they arrived at Old Dray Town. After he finished speaking, the clown turned back into his arm and continued to retract into Han Dong's head. He was bound by the device in the biological laboratory. Han Dong would never allow the clown to act unscrupulously in the sacred city. If people knew that the boss in the Destiny realm was brought out by Han Dong, the Parliament would definitely investigate Han Dong's identity. He reached out and touched the Dyson sphere. Completed the seed stage event, you are rewarded with 50 Destiny points. The unused Destiny points can be accumulated for the next use. Han Dong checked the price of the materials that reached the epic quality through the screening mechanism. He secretly calculated the current points and the points that he could earn in the next few years by renting the node. He nodded secretly and left the Destiny realm without exchanging any items. In Han Dong's view, it was necessary to have a long-term plan. He had to make a perfect weapon of his own before the selection of knights or before the seed was broken. He left the Destiny realm. Just as Han Dong and Abel walked out of the clock tower one after another. Damn you! Where did you go? I was so worried. Mia had been guarding the entrance of the clock tower the whole time. The moment Han Dong came out, she quickly went forward and hugged him tightly. Han Dong immediately pressed Mia's head. Don't pretend. If you were really worried, you would have stayed. Come back to the mystery branch with me. I have something to ask you out tonight. Chapter 356. You're going to do it with me tonight? Mia was actually a little confused by the sudden happiness that came to her. Don't think too much about it. It's something else. After I meet Mr. Black and White, I might need to go through you, Mia, to meet the witch tonight. To be precise, I should be meeting the Great Plague Master. if the Great Plague Master happens to be with the witch. Oh, what about sleeping? It depends. Hee hee. Seeing that Han Dong did not directly reject her, Mia was still very happy. At this time, Abel stepped forward. The smile on his face could not be concealed, but of course, his exhaustion was also shown at the same time. The final series of flyers took a total of 24 hours. Then, without any rest, he directly entered the lighthouse and fought with the lantern man that was comparable to a knight. Once Abel lost focus, he could fall asleep at any time. This time, it was mostly thanks to Nicholas that I was able to complete the mission perfectly. I have to report the details of the 5-star mission to my grandfather. I'll treat everyone to a good meal in a few days. With a total of 3 fate points, Abel had directly invested 5 points in his mastery of control and reached the seed-breaking stage. If this matter was reported to Captain Kai Meng, he would definitely be overjoyed. As Abel was still young, he could be given a year to consolidate his strength and reach the maximum before the seed-breaking stage. At that time, he would arrange for Abel to undergo the special seed-breaking ceremony to lay the most perfect and solid foundation. As for blacksmith Wen Li, she was also standing at the side with a worried expression. But seeing how close Han Dong and Mia were, she did not go forward. Wen Li, Vice Captain. She was still a little stunned when Han Dong called her. How does it feel to experience a fate event for the first time? It's okay. Actually, I'm most afraid of these strange and terrifying vengeful spirits. But with everyone's protection, I feel like I've grown a lot. Vice Captain, it's good that you're fine. I'm so stupid that I didn't realize that you were deliberately sending us away. The last competition, Node, will be easily exposed if there are too many people. You've done well in the early stages. Go back and report the situation to the old blacksmith. Have a good rest. Good. Vice Captain, if you have any equipment that you need to forge, you can look for me anytime. That was it. Fate Event Ghost Stories had a perfect ending. The 4 members also returned to their respective faculties to report the good news to their respective instructors. Han Dong found a carriage by the roadside and prepared to return to the mystery branch with Wen Li. Unexpectedly, the moment the carriage door opened, there was already someone sitting inside. Mr. Black and White. This was the umpteenth time that Mr. Black and White had appeared in the carriage. Nicholas, come up. As for student Mia, you should call for another carriage. The witch will be very happy to hear that you've cleared a 5-star difficulty fate event. Yes, Mia, who had wanted to chat with Han Dong for a while, had no choice but to leave with her tail between her legs. Han Dong smelled a familiar scent the moment he got on the carriage. This was Mr. Black and White's Raven carriage. Obviously, Mr. Black and White did not come here on the spur of the moment. He had specifically come to pick him up. Well done. Without needing Han Dong to elaborate, Mr. Black and White already knew what Han Dong had obtained. However, in the astrology that Mr. Black and White had spied on, there was a blurry point that he could not see clearly. In your experience this time, there was a part of the process that I couldn't see clearly. What happened to you in the Abyss public toilet? It seemed that this was the reason why Mr. Black and White had taken the initiative to ask him personally. After all, if even his astrology could see clearly, it meant that Han Dong had probably touched upon something deeper. By chance, I passed through Hell's Gate. On an unknown island in Hell, I met Commander Malone Hines H. Kazakovic. As soon as he said this, Mr. Black and White's mask cracked into an exaggerated smile. One could even vaguely see a dry and pale face inside. Malone, he's still alive. Did he say how long it would take for him to come back? Yes, he said that would be a few months at least, or 3 years at most. Death God Alex has returned, and Demon King Malone is still alive. If he can return in 3 years, then I can directly submit the plan for the Great Expedition to the Parliament. At that time, Nicholas, you can also become an official knight, and maybe you can join this epic journey. Great Expedition. That's right. The Holy City needs to take a big step forward. We'll talk about the details when you become an official knight. Okay. By the way, how's Malone's situation? Sir, Commander Malone seems to be fine. but he's trapped in hell for some reason. Because of some elements of hell in my body, I can roughly guess that Commander Malone seems to be undergoing the King of Hell assessment. My eyes can vaguely see that the top of his head is almost formed, the ash crown. The assessment seems to be completed. Good. Mr. Black and White was very happy after hearing this news. What did you get in hell? This kind of unexpected event that completely exceeds the current level should have an additional reward, right? Han Dong took out the treasure map fragment without hesitation. Oh, that's rare. The reward is actually a fragment of the treasure map of destiny. Keep this thing well. If an ordinary knight knows about it, they might secretly have ideas about you. I'll help you pay attention to the news on the market. If someone sells the fragment, I'll try my best to get it for you. Han Dong was very embarrassed. You're my only student. Since there's such an opportunity, of course, you have to seize it. Also, the difficulty of entering the space through the treasure map of destiny is very high. Some people are willing to exchange the fragment for a large amount of money. If you can obtain the treasure of destiny, your overall strength will be greatly improved, which is also beneficial for the holy city. Han Dong felt that Mr. Black and White was very happy today. But back to the topic, Han Dong quickly asked, "Thank you, sir." "Oh, right about the miner. The Great Plague Chief is in the swamp tonight. You can ask him yourself. As for the library, if you want, I can help you get in touch with some people. But since you know Demps Martin, it'll be more convenient for you to ask him directly." Okay. Han Dong was waiting for Mr. Black and White to say that. After all, if it was a miner, Han Dong would have to spend a lot of time in the library. He was afraid that Mr. Black and White would be unhappy. Mr. Black and White didn't say anything. "Don't worry about what I'll think. Just develop in the direction you want. As long as you don't go astray, I won't interfere." Chapter 357. On the way back to the carriage. Since he knew about Mr. Black and White's attitude, Han Dong could freely go to the library to learn about magic. For a moment, all the burdens in his heart were put down. Unable to resist his tiredness, Han Dong lay down on the spacious carriage seat and fell into a deep sleep. It was natural for him to be tired. Han Dong's brain had been operating at high efficiency for almost 30 hours. It was too tiring. When Han Dong lay down on the seat and slept, saliva kept dripping from the corner of his mouth. He didn't know how long he slept. When Han Dong woke up again, he smelled sandalwood mixed with stinky century eggs and rotten organs in the air. He opened his eyes in a daze and stared at the black chandelier hanging on the roof. With a toad as the base, a candle made from animal fat was burning. In a wooden room, there were some decorations hanging on the bed, and a huge, slippery specimen of a fish head was hanging on the bed. The smell came from these decorations and the candle. Han Dong wasn't alone on the slightly damp bed. Someone was gently hugging his arm. He looked down and saw Mia, who was wearing a black gauze dress, sleeping on the side. Is this the home of the witch in the Deadwater Swamp? Mia slowly woke up at this moment. She stared at Han Dong's slightly rosy cheeks. Although nothing happened between them, at least they slept together. Han Dong didn't have any other thoughts. He got up immediately and put on a black coat. "Wait for me. Teacher and the Great Plague Master are outside. It's better if we go out together. Otherwise, if you're alone, Teacher might give you a hard time." Okay. When Mia got up, her slender waist bent back slightly, stretching out her long waist. The slightly translucent black gauze dress revealed her almost perfect figure. However, just as Mia thought that Han Dong would be attracted by her body and steal a peek, Mia's eyes flashed with a strange light. However, she found that Han Dong was checking his wind-up watch to see if anyone had sent him a message during this period of time. He was completely indifferent to such a scenery. Mia pouted and immediately changed into her normal witch attire. She then sheathed the demonic blade that was placed at the head of the bed into her wooden staff. Her disguise was complete. In the hall of Witch's home, a cup of lizard tail tea and toad skin tea was placed in front of each of them. 3 points at once. When Han Dong told her about his destiny, even the witch was shocked. She was more inclined to form a team with Mia and this young man. I'll put all 3 points into the library. In the future, the 2 seeds will enter the seed-breaking stage at the same time to maintain the balance. What do you suggest, Chief Great Plague? The Great Plague chieftain stroked the stubble on his face with his coarse fingers. The pursuit of balance is necessary, but the content of my major and minor is different from yours. Some detailed guidance is not very meaningful. For now, you should think of a way to fill in the knowledge of the library. By the way, the management of the library is much stricter than the occultism. Black and White should have already found you a good connection, right? No, I have my own connections in the library. Mr. Black and White said that it's better for me to use my connections. Since Black and White said so, then it's fine. I just want to remind you that you should not completely leave the occultism behind in the process of learning the knowledge related to the library. In the process of learning, you should seek a kind of resonance. I'm not very good at expressing myself in words, but you should know what I mean. Of course, Han Dong understood. He had always wanted to combine magic and witchcraft. He would not be biased towards either side in the process of learning and cultivation. Come to me when both of your seeds reach the seed-breaking stage. Since the Great Plague chieftain had already expressed his opinion, Han Dong did not ask any more questions. Then I won't disturb you anymore. Han Dong was about to leave and make an appointment with Demps to officially register at the library. Wait. Captain, what's the matter? The plague in your body seems a little different. Release it and let me see it. There's no need to worry. We're all on the same side here. The difference that the Great Plague chieftain felt was naturally the black taint. It was the result of Han Dong combining the taint with the ability outside the city. Seeing the Great Plague chieftain holding the witch in his arms, Han Dong nodded slightly. He reached out his right hand. Immediately, a black energy condensed in his palm. An impure plague energy with veins on its surface suddenly shot out from his palm. It was completely different from the usual plague energy. The moment the black energy appeared, a taint aura spread in the room. The Great Plague chieftain simply reached out his hand and easily caught the black energy and absorbed it into his palm, including the taint energy that was fused with it. Of course, the Great Plague chieftain could not absorb the taint. He could only use the calamity in his body to completely eliminate the taint that he absorbed. Interesting. However, the combination of the two is still rather crude. You can use the library to learn how to finely adjust, control, and mix the energy. After all, those scholars with weak physical bodies have their own unique way of fusing magical energy. Thank you for your advice, Great Plague chieftain. After Han Dong left, the witch, Coronia, looked at her man in surprise. Mordrani, aren't you disgusted by the things outside the city? I'm indeed disgusted. If this kid wasn't a student of mysticism, I would have killed him first and reported later. However, he's a special student carefully selected by Black and White. I believe in Black and White's choice. Black and White again. The witch felt terrible when she heard that name, especially when it came from her man. Moreover, you've seen this student's talent. If he can be like me and produce a different talent tree from his minor, his future will be limitless. Perhaps he can really change the current situation of the Holy City. He's just a fledgling kid. If he's not careful, he'll fall. Even Black and White can't determine the future. At this moment, the witch turned her attention to her student. Mia, take out your demonic blade and show it to the Great Plague chieftain. Yes. When the demonic blade was unsheathed, the terrifying figure of a woman in a kimono appeared. Not bad. You're able to obtain unique equipment as a novice knight. If you want to learn a foreign sword technique, I'll have some crusader friends keep an eye out for you in the academy. Thank you, Great Plague chieftain. Your batch of students is quite good. I look forward to your and Nicholas' future performance. Chapter 358. For the average apprentice knight. If they successfully survive the dangerous Destiny realm, they would have to spend at least a week to rest and recuperate. It was rare to see an apprentice knight like Han Dong, who rushed to the library to learn after a good night's sleep or even before eating. However, this was inevitable. Since Han Dong chose to embark on this unusual auxiliary path, he had to spend more time than ordinary people, not to mention that Han Dong had some small tricks outside the city. On the private carriage to the library. After I reach the basic level of magic in the library, I'll find time to leave the city. Anyway, the materials I sent last time should be enough for the doctor to use for more than 20 days, and the basic facilities have been built. When I reach the basic level of magic again, I can ask the Crowman Elder for some special magic knowledge. At the same time, I'll find a way to revive the head nurse and find an assistant for Dr. Swollen. Speaking of which, the harvest this time is really rich. Han Dong took out the core searchlight from Lantern Man, Kanejima Soichiro, from his pocket. This item was the source of Han Dong's long-term plan to create a special weapon. Destiny material, lighthouse source, lamp tube, quality, epic category, light magic material effect, provides a unique strong light attribute. When made into a weapon, provides a large increase in the light attribute and provides a unique strong light skill. When made into an accessory, increases the light attribute magic damage of the wearer and gives the ability illuminate, dispels fog, darkness, and other environmental factors that obstruct vision that are not higher than the material's grade. For methods that are higher than the material's grade, the effect will be weakened gradually. When used with other materials of the same quality to forge, there may be an unexpected fusion effect. The light attribute of the material itself is easier to catalyze the relevant reaction during the forging process. Under special circumstances, the light attribute can be changed, such as dark light, according to the requirements of the forger. Epic material. This was the highest quality material Han Dong had seen so far. However, it was impossible to forge a suitable equipment with only one material. Han Dong planned to rent the node for 2 years and use all his points to exchange for an epic material of the same quality. At that time, he would borrow Han Dong's power. He could ask for some precious materials from outside the city from the Crowmen, or obtain some secret materials through Mr. Black and White. In Han Dong's opinion, if he mixed the destiny materials with the chaos materials outside the city, he might be able to create equipment that was more suitable for him. Once the materials were gathered, he would ask Wen Li, the blacksmith, to find her or a more advanced blacksmith to forge it. Han Dong knew what kind of equipment he wanted. Combining mysticism and the library, Han Dong had a special development goal. Profession name. Library. Compared to the other 4 professions, the name of this profession was rather unique. Most of the abilities it bestowed were inclined towards magic. However, it was impossible to generalize these knights as mages. Because the word magician was too narrow, only the word library could fully cover it. The common holy light priests, elementalists, necromancers, and alchemists all came from the library. At the same time, there were also classes that were rarely heard of, such as demon warlocks, binders, battle mages, and so on. Library's internal branches were the most extensive among the 5 major professions. This was also the main reason why many newcomers chose the library. Such a huge variable allowed everyone to find their own suitable path in the learning process. Because of its popularity, it was tied with Crusader. In addition to the uniqueness of the library, it also had a school-level public facility, such as a library. Library. This area was the largest among the 5 major faculties. Also, because of the preciousness of the internal collection of books, the library's security measures were also top-notch. Even the students of the main faculty had to verify the Knight Waste tag to pass through the various areas of the school, and they also had to show the approval document when going to certain areas. As for the students of the Outer Academy, without special permission, they could not enter the library's territory. Wow, this is library's territory? It's really heavily guarded. Han Dong's rented carriage was warned when it was 1 kilometer away from the territory, and it was forbidden to continue. When he stepped off the carriage, he could see the landmark of the library, the giant obelisk. A total of 9 giant obelisks surrounded the academy. The obelisks formed a sealed barrier between each other, and only the night waste tag that recognized the students of the main faculty allowed passage. The first attempt would be bounced back by the barrier. The second attempt would activate the obelisk and trigger a destructive magic spell. At the same time, every teacher in the library carried an accessory called the Eye of the Obelisk, which could be used to observe the situation outside the obelisk at any time. Nicholas, over here. After a while, the handsome young man wearing a bronze monocle, Demps, passed through the barrier and waved at Han Dong. He still had a temporary pass in his hand that he had applied for Han Dong, but it was still troublesome for him to enter and leave the library for a long time. The reason why Han Dong had come today was because he wanted to confirm the long-term entry and exit in advance. Come with me. You have 3 points allocated to the library. I believe the teachers won't make things difficult for you. When he heard that Han Dong had obtained 3 fate points through a single fate event, Demps was not particularly surprised. In his opinion, Han Dong had such ability. Holding the temporary pass, he stepped into the barrier. A magic academy that could only be seen in fantasy movies appeared in front of Han Dong. In the open garden area, various vegetative statues were chatting with each other like normal people. Various colorful butterflies that would form a thin layer of mist in the air were fluttering about. At the center of the garden, there were many water drinkers gathered at the side of the fountain. They could only use cups of limited size to line up for the water of life. Many students who majored in water, plant, and holy light were freely training in this area. Compared to the mystery section, this place was much more lively. This is the Life Park, located to the east of the library. The main library, also known as the Magic Headquarters, has been set up in the center. There are 9 special areas of different attributes around it, and the current Life Park is only one of them. Where are we going now? We're going directly to the main library. I've already mentioned your matter to Vice Director Hera. She has agreed to meet you. Don't worry, I have a good relationship with Vice Director Hera. You can relax when we talk. As long as there aren't too many conflicts of interest, it won't be a problem to give you a student pass. While talking about Lady Hera, Demps hooked his finger slightly to let Han Dong understand the meaning behind it. Chapter 359. The General Library, also known as the Magic Headquarters. Such a core building was equivalent to the Dark Moon Tower in the Mystery Department. It was one of the most important buildings in the Night Academy. It had a comprehensive office, a collection of books and secret texts, as well as high-level meetings. It was different from the other departments. In the library, in addition to teaching and managing the students, there was also a director and a deputy director of the same level responsible for managing the National Royal Night Academy's library. At present, Demps wanted to bring Han Dong to see the powerful deputy director. The exterior was designed to be similar to Big Ben, but it was different from the Bell Tower that controlled the Destiny space. The whole building was surrounded by a strong magical aura. He showed the pass authorized by Ms. Hera. The two officially entered the General Library. First, they had to pass through a 10-meter-long passage engraved with various magical carvings. These secret carvings would further detect whether the two were carrying items or had dangerous characteristics. During this process, the crow mark on the back of Han Dong's right hand faintly appeared. With the perfect camouflage of the faceless skull, they successfully escaped the inspection of these carvings. Demps on the side reminded him. The General Library was redesigned by the former director. It's the first time using a multi-dimensional staircase structure. It's easy for you to get lost in it since it's your first time here. Follow me closely. Otherwise, it will be difficult for me to find you again. When the door of the inspection passage opened, the wonderful structure of the library's hall made Han Dong stop immediately. The staircase that obviously did not conform to the rules of the three-dimensional space was designed in this open hall. Some library staff wearing double-breasted windbreakers were walking on these stairs in different directions. As long as one understood the rules, they could go to any area of the General Library. If one looked at this staircase with a normal three-dimensional concept, they would inevitably be lost in it. Because of the existence of the multi-dimensional staircase, The space utilization of the general library was maximized and complicated. Even if an outsider broke in, if they could not decipher the structure of the staircase, they would be lost and unable to reach any important areas, giving the security personnel time to act. Penrose Stairs? Han Dong had come into contact with this kind of multidimensional model when he was alive. After all, sometimes microscale calculations were needed. Han Dong's mathematical foundation was not bad. In basic mathematics, there was the concept of multidimensional space. However, this was only to help mathematicians understand the concept of multidimensional space, and it was difficult to apply it to the field of physics. After all, humans were only individuals in a three-dimensional space, and it was difficult for them to pry into the structure of a higher dimension. If we follow this structure, with the turning point of the stairs as the center, theoretically, we can make 4 perpendicular lines. Judging from the way these people are walking, that is indeed the case. A staircase design that projected the 4-dimensional space into the 3-dimensional space. Is the former curator really that amazing? He saw that Han Dong was deep in thought. Demps asked curiously, Nicholas, could it be that you have some understanding of multidimensional space? I only know some one-sided concepts. It can't be considered an opinion. It's already very powerful. Spatial magic is much more difficult than conventional magic. 99% of the apprentice knights would be eliminated just from the entry level of space, and the subsequent learning would be even more difficult. It had been a long time since the Holy City had produced a space mage at the level of a commander. I'm currently taking some time to understand and learn about spatial studies. There seemed to be some hidden meaning in Dempsey's words. Han Dong asked curiously, That's right. By the way, aren't there some creatures in the Destiny realm who are proficient in spatial magic? They're just born with an intersection with multidimensional space, and they're not proficient in it. The spatial ability they carry is given, not learned by themselves. Most of them can't understand the principle. A true space mage is basically unkillable, and even a higher existence. Let's go. We can't keep Ms. Hera waiting for too long. The moment they stepped on the stairs, Han Dong felt that the originally normal library hall had become folded. The seemingly simple stairs could easily span a large distance, and they could reach any area in the library building at will. They kept turning back and forth and walking vertically. A slanted staircase on the wall corresponded to the 3rd reading room. Once they entered a room in the main library building, the interior immediately returned to the normal 3-dimensional space structure. In the reading room, with a total height of about 10 meters, more than 10 pairs of white gloves were automatically organizing the books here and taking care of the cleaning work. Some senior students were using their precious time to read and study here. Under Dempsey's lead, they found Ms. Hera in the deepest part of the reading room. She was a blonde beauty wearing gold-rimmed glasses. She had the aura of a movie star, and from her appearance, she looked about 35 years old. But her figure and the texture of her skin were definitely comparable to some models in their early 20s. Oh, you're Mr. Black and White student. Follow me. Hera touched a special switch, and a secret staircase opened, leading them to the deputy director's private office. Have a seat. Ms. Hera deliberately let Demps sit beside her so that she could cross her long legs on Demps. As for Han Dong, he sat on the guest sofa. I heard that you want a minor in library. Have you invested the relevant points? Yes, I've invested 3 points. Hera was slightly surprised. She thought that Han Dong would ask about the feasibility before investing, but she didn't expect that he had already invested 3 important points. Oh, 3 points. Not bad. Do you plan to mainly study in the mystery branch, or do you plan to spend most of your time in our library? This question needed to be answered carefully. I'll take care of both, but because the library started too late, I'll do my best to study in the library in the early stages. Hera's expression was rather cold in response to Han Dong's answer. If not for Demps asking me to take you in, no teacher in the library would touch a hot potato like you. You should know that although minor majors aren't completely prohibited, they aren't encouraged at all. Because minor majors are a waste of destiny points and energy, there are many students who can't even pass the most basic night exam. If you want to study under my tutelage as an official student, there are two conditions. Deputy Director Hera, please speak. First, if you really have the ability, you can give birth to a unique talent tree, like the Great Plague Elder. I need you to state at the night commendation ceremony that I'm the only teacher of a minor major, and I provided you with a lot of help while you're studying the knowledge of the library. Second, the long-term pass I've applied for you only means that you're a visiting scholar. Compared to the students in my department, your authority will be much lesser. However, since you have such a good relationship with Demps, you can ask him for help with some things that you can't do. I've heard that Mr. Black and White thinks highly of you, so it's a good thing for you to interact more with Demps in private. All right. In fact, Ms. Hera's request was that Han Dong would not be given a proper name, and that he would be allowed to secretly study in the library. If he had some achievements in the future, he would have to say that he had received a great favor from the library and admit that he was a trainee knight nurtured by both the mystery branch and the library. However, being able to let Han Dong obtain a long-term pass was already a pretty good result, and the rest could be slowly considered. Chapter 360. Slightly to the inner side. Just as Han Dong agreed to study in the library as a visiting scholar, Hera's face turned red. Lady Hera's cheeks were actually slightly red, and she let out a sound that would cause one's imagination to run wild. The reason for this was because Demps was massaging her calf with his unique massage technique. A feeling similar to continuous electric shock spread from her calf muscles, and it was extremely comfortable. Hera's expression immediately changed, and she asked with a serious face, "Cough, cough. Nicholas, what do you major in occultism?" "I'm major in plague, and I'm also proficient in witchcraft." Hera showed a very disdainful expression. Witchcraft, a kind of inferior spell that requires a physical object to be activated. It relies on dark magic and the occult energy of living creatures as its foundation, trying to be on equal footing with magic. It's just a very narrow and restrictive spell. However, there are some similarities between witchcraft and magic. Normally, when students of my school enter the school, they will go through a very strict and detailed testing device to confirm their magic affinity and attribute bias. Perform your witchcraft once. I'll use it as a standard to judge your foundation and the direction of your future studies. All right. The witchcraft that Han Dong spoke of was nothing more than the release of the seed's energy in the form of crows. In the Ghost Stories incident, this was the first time such a spell was used in a real battle, and it was quite effective. However, the crows that Han Dong released usually contained a certain amount of the Crowman's attributes, which were equivalent to the attributes outside the city. Currently, he could only hide the Crowman's attributes and release the crows purely using the seed's energy. Caw! A pure black crow immediately emerged from Han Dong's palm and flew towards Hera. When the crow was about 1 meter away, it crashed into a colorless and invisible magic shield. A black ripple spread out on the surface, and then slowly dissipated, leaving only a few crow feathers floating in the air. Hera stared at the spreading black ripple, thinking back to the move just now, and couldn't help but fall into deep thought. "Sister Hera, this is considered black magic, right?" Demps asked from the side. Bionic magic that is directly constructed without a physical carrier is indeed in the category of black magic. "Kid, did you learn this from the witch deep in the swamp?" Han Dong hurriedly denied and explained. "No. You can say that I comprehended it myself, due to the fact that Mr. Black and White gave me some of the characteristics of the crow the last time I went out of the city to participate in an elite mission with Mr. Demps. We came into contact with the Crowman tribe by chance. With all these reasons intertwined together, I came up with the idea of fusing the seed's energy with the crow's characteristics, thus casting this kind of magic. Not only can it release a single crow to attack directly, it can also release a large number of crows to disturb the enemy. Self-taught. If Han Dong majored in library, Lady Hera would definitely list him as an important target to nurture. No wonder the Crow Prophet took a liking to you. You do have some skills. Since you are proficient in black magic, you can take these books back and study them yourself. During the self-study period, you can go to any classroom in my library to listen and learn as a visiting scholar. If there were areas where his authority was insufficient, he would ask Demps for help. Come back to see me in a month. At that time, I will conduct a comprehensive investigation on you. If you pass, I will take you directly into the practical application of basic magic. You will be Demps's opponent in actual combat. Among students of the same level, no one can last 3 minutes against Demps. I hope he could be a long-term sparring partner. 3 thick books were thrown into Han Dong's hands. Overview of Basic Magic, Origins of Dark Magic, Prayer of Darkness and Light, Dark Section. Teacher Hera, may I ask, can you give me another book related to alchemy? You're a dual professional, and you still want to touch your sideline? You seem to have a lot of time. However, seeing that Han Dong's crow spell had a relatively high completion rate, Hera waved her hand and sent a copy of Pyramid, Foundation of Alchemy, into Han Dong's hands. Remember, the study of your sideline must be done after you finish studying your main profession. If you want money, wait until you can combine 2 seeds and grow a unique tree of talents, just like the Great Pestilence Elder. Naturally, you will be valued by the Holy City, and a large commission will enter your account every month. I'm just purely interested in alchemy. I want to try and understand it. All right, that's all for today. Demps and I still have some things to do, so you can go back by yourself. Of course, you can walk around the library if you want. After saying that, the deputy director didn't care about Han Dong's gaze at all, and immediately slid her fingers on Demps's body, indicating that he should massage other parts. Unexpectedly, Demps refused and, at the same time, moved the deputy director's long legs away. Sister Hera, I'm a bit tired today. Besides, my friend just came to the library, so I have to send him back. Let's talk about the massage next time. Okay, this kind of conversation surprised Han Dong. Demps's method was more brilliant than Han Dong expected. It seemed that by loosening the reins only to grasp them better, he had privately reached an equal relationship with a high and mighty deputy director. Han Dong smiled to himself as he stared at the handsome young man walking over from the side. They walked out of the main library building. This is the detailed plan of a library, indicating the buildings and special areas that need permission to enter. Also, this is an important notebook I made when I first came to the library. Take a look. It should save you a lot of detours. Demps was so enthusiastic that Han Dong seemed a bit uncomfortable. Habit. Demps's arm was also on Han Dong's shoulder for some reason, and it seemed to be more intimate. It's very difficult for me to see the same kind in the Holy City, let alone a student of the same level like you. And we even went through life and death together outside the city. Doesn't Mia count as well? She's just an insect possessor, a special student who passively contacted the outside of the city. But you and I are actively contacting the outside of the city. In the future, if you need anything in the library, just look for me. Don't hesitate. Okay. Demps slowly moved his lips close to Han Dong's ear and whispered softly. By the way, you should be leaving the city soon, right? Can you take me with you? Han Dong had never told anyone about the manor. Demps's question made Han Dong's expression change slightly. Naturally, he could not refuse. Han Dong nodded and set a condition at the same time. Okay, but you have to meet Mr. Black and White. After all, I rely on Mr. Black and White's private carriage to leave the city. No problem. As long as Demps could meet Mr. Black and White, the security issue would be reviewed by him. If Mr. Black and White thought there was no problem, then at least Han Dong did not have to worry about leaking secrets. He still had to be on guard. Chapter 361. There was a carriage carved with dark gold ravens. 3 horses covered in black fog were responsible for pulling the carriage. There was only one person in the Holy City who owned such a carriage. They could leave the city directly without being checked. Mr. Black and White's real power in the Holy City is completely higher than the department head and the chief of staff of the Knights of Plague. He is indeed a recognized prophet. According to estimates, the problems Mr. Black and White solves every year through astrology account for a quarter of the 13 Knights' annual workload. It's too important to be warned in advance. In the carriage, Demps and Han Dong sat opposite each other. He had already obtained Mr. Black and White's permission to leave the city together. However, Demps would not follow Han Dong to Stewart Manor. He would get off halfway. This way, Han Dong's worries were completely eliminated. After all, Han Dong did not want anyone to know about the manor's secret. The departure time was set to be 108 hours. Once the time was up, they would meet at the spot where Demps got off and return to the city together. Dempus, speaking of which, where are you going? Demps used his pinky to gently lift the fringe hanging over his eyebrows and said softly, I'm going to a place where I can train my fingers, because I haven't been able to find a reasonable way to leave the city without arousing suspicion. I haven't gone out alone for a long time. This time, it's all thanks to you. Well, I'll be leaving the city more frequently in the future. Let me know if you need anything. As long as it did not involve the manor's secret, Han Dong could bring Demps out of the city at any time. Not to mention, the two of them had a mutually beneficial relationship. The carriage's route was very different from before. According to Demps's request, the carriage crossed the forest and arrived at the edge of a cliff that was hundreds of meters high. There should have been nothing at the edge of the cliff, but there was a strange and eerie black stone house. Its surface was made up of spike-shaped black stones. A large number of finger bracelets hung from the top of the black stone spikes. Obviously, this black stone house was there to receive Demps. It took the initiative to receive him. This indirectly showed that Demps's status outside the city was not lower than his status inside the city. If you want to trace it back to its roots, he might be able to find out a terrifying background. Then let's meet again in 3 days. After Dempus waved goodbye, he immediately entered the black stone house at the edge of the cliff. For a moment, the entire house began to shake, and then it was completely separated from the cliff. He took a closer look. At the bottom of the black stone house, there were 2 long legs that were as tall as the cliff. The legs were also covered with black, spiky leg hair, and they carried the black stone house away slowly. Demps Martin has a very deep background. He did not stay for too long. The carriage turned and immediately drove towards the chateau. Ga. 2 crowmen elders flew out from the castle to personally welcome Han Dong. Congratulations, my lord, for obtaining the treasure. Congratulations, my lord, for increasing your strength. These crowmen who had reached the level of hybrid demons had amazing observation skills. They could see the treasure aura on Han Dong, especially the extremely bright light source. It made these crowmen who had lived in the dark outside the city for a long time wary. I will stay in the chateau for 4 days. I might ask you for some knowledge about crow spells. The crowmen elders lowered their heads slightly. Ga, we will satisfy any request my lord has. All right. Han Dong immediately took off his gloves. He immediately turned into the appearance of the Dozier Crow. However, compared to before, the Dozier Crow's state was a bit strange. In the world of ghost stories, the Dozier Crow had fused with Han Dong many times, and during that time, it was also nourished by the essence of the faceless skull, cooperating with the fusion to fight against the powerful ghost stories. The Dozier Crow was currently in a state of meditation. Oh, this little guy is about to evolve. Please allow me to bring the Dozier Crow back to the chateau. After all, it represents our crowman tribe and will always be by your side. My lord, no mistakes are allowed during the evolution process. Can I observe the evolution process? My lord, please come with me. Han Dong was also quite curious about the evolution process of the crowman. He immediately followed the 2 elders to the chateau. The chateau that once had a complicated design with multiple sections had been refurbished by the elders. Most of the walls on the first floor had been knocked down and changed into an open hall with some branches and vines as decorations. The Dozier Crow was placed in the middle of the hall, in the center of a circle made of skulls, black water, and tree branches. Visible to the naked eye, The meditating Dozier Crow was absorbing the energy of the circle. After a while, there were signs of flesh wriggling around its neck. It was about to grow a second head. The Crowman elder explained on the side. We Crowmen are more inclined towards wizards. Our evolution is mainly in the brain, therefore, from the outside, it will mainly be in the head. The formation of two heads will allow the Dozier Crow to store more dark energy, increasing its intelligence and making it easier to weave spells in its head. When the time comes for a deeper connection with you, my lord, it will be able to provide even more power. The Dozier Crow is quite useful. Speaking of which, will the formation of a second head also give birth to a second consciousness? It won't. Having an extra head is only a sign of the brain expanding. It will still only have one consciousness. We Crowmen are considered low-level beings. We can't be compared to your head. Haha. Following the formation of the Dozier Crow's second head, its feathers had also become more plump, black, and shiny. Caw. Bring people, thank you. Due to the formation of the second head, the Dozier Crow's language ability was basically complete. It could speak a kind of stuttering English. However, from the Dozier Crow's eyes, it seemed to still have a trace of fear. The increase in strength did not change its weak personality. It's rare for you to return to the tribe. You can do whatever you want in the manor for the next few days. All right, elders, if there's anything I need, I'll come find you. No need to worry too much about me. I'll go to the underground area earlier. Han Dong immediately went through a secret passage in the chateau, as if he was riding a slide, and directly reached the core experimental area underground. In the past, every time Han Dong came to the manor, Dr. Swollen would personally welcome him. Today, there was no movement. Oh, the overall construction of the laboratory is basically complete. However, the doctor's aesthetic style is a bit dangerous. Speaking of which, where's the doctor? Walking in the laboratory area with the brain style, there was no trace of the doctor for a long time. However, not far away, a handicraft attracted Han Dong's attention. The surface was connected to various pipes and wires, and the inside was embedded with gears and small hydraulic devices. This is a brain? Chapter 362. The intricate brain was like a work of art. Its size was about the size of a fat person's body. The embedded gears, hydraulic devices, and parts of the metal structure reminded Han Dong of Stuart's former body structure. In fact, Han Dong was also very curious. As a ghoul, where did the metal drive system come from? He did not find any relevant information in Dr. Swollen's research. Dr. Swollen was the same as Han Dong. He was good at biological research, but he was not good at metal drive systems. When Han Dong approached the giant brain, he immediately smelled a familiar scent. Could this be? He waited for about half an hour. The slow-moving gears in the brain gradually stopped. The tubes that carried oxygen and nutrient solution were separated from the brain. Polluting tentacles immediately grew on the surface of the brain and combined with the body, soaked in solution. A new body similar to Frankenstein was used to carry the brain. Not only did the brain increase in size, but there was also a metal structure inside. The weight increased greatly, and the original body was no longer suitable. A large and swollen skull wrapped around the brain, and the scalp was reinforced with several metal nuts. Sir, you're here. The moment Dr. Swollen opened his eyes, he immediately knelt down. This is? Dr. Swollen immediately explained. My lord, when I was expanding my laboratory, I accidentally found some remains of a great lord in the depths of the manor's ruins. I tried to introduce the metal body structure given by this into the remains into my brain. I didn't expect it to be so easy. In a short period of time, it caused a huge change in my brain. I feel that I'm faintly showing signs of evolving into a hybrid demon. Han Dong was also very happy that Dr. Swollen was able to grow. Oh, you said that the metal drive system of the Great Lord came from the Old King? That's right. The manor only belonged to a small and unremarkable territory among the many territories in the Old King's hands. However, As the keeper of the land deed, the great lord could still receive some gifts from the old king. Such a metal body is the main gift. Dr. Swollen was very excited when he talked about this matter. After all, he had greatly improved because of this. Since this belongs to M.O., you can use it as you wish. Is it okay? I've used a signal device to conduct relevant tests before this. This metal wreckage no longer has any signs of energy dissipation. My lord, the Life Laboratory and Production Workshop are basically complete. Do you need me to show you around? All right. Along the way, Han Dong was so meticulous that he checked the diameter of each conduit, the shape and number of blades of the paddle, the humidity control of the environment, and the precision of the concentration detection. All kinds of questions were raised. Professor Swollen followed by the side and took notes. After a few hours, he filled up an entire notebook. My lord, aren't you only in your 20s? Dr. Swollen had thought that his newly built laboratory would be praised by the Lord, but he did not expect to be asked a lot of questions. This made the doctor sweat profusely, and he was curious about what the lore messenger used to do. Han Dong's rigor was something he had learned during his Ph.D. studies. Biological reactions were based on enzymes, and the catalysts that came with living things had strict environmental requirements. Therefore, every step of biological experiments had to be taken into consideration. The details determine the production rate and whether or not high-quality products can be produced. You have to pay attention to the details I mentioned just now. If you need any materials, make a list, and I'll provide it to you in one go. All right. By the way, I have two things here for you. One of them was the cell essence that Han Dong had extracted from the condemned prisoners in the world of ghost stories. Han Dong did not plan to use it for himself. This kind of cell essence extracted from the human body was more suitable for research. He could try to inject muscle characteristics similar to those of the condemned prisoners into the zombie's body, or even introduce fighting skills. The doctor carefully took the petri dish. I'll try my best to study it. Also, I found an assistant for you. Can the life incubator in the lab be used now? Yes. Follow me. Professor Swollen led Han Dong to a separate experiment room. In the room filled with red filaments, there was a fleshy chamber that could hold cooked zombies. Part of the inspiration for this device came from the mother. Through Professor Swollen's methods, it was created to mimic the mother's structure and was used to nurture life. The cost was naturally not cheap. Just this device alone took Professor Swollen a whole month to build. Han Dong took out the important items. The core crystal from the S-level ghost story, head nurse, and the cell essence after a day of cultivation, already formed a cell community and had strong differentiation ability. Professor Swollen took the cell community in the petri dish and observed it through a self-made optical microscope. They are all stem cells, a type of cell with unlimited or immortal self-renewal ability, able to produce at least one type of highly differentiated progeny cell. Sir, how did you get them? The cell essence extracted by Han Dong with the syringe was a stem cell community with unlimited potential. Can they form an individual? With the core stabilizing, of course there's no problem following the squirming of the womb-like sac. After 2 hours of body reconstruction, the head nurse in a purple coat slid out of the sack, her whole body sticky and slippery. The moment she opened her eyes, the head nurse immediately glared at Han Dong. Her memory was still stuck in the lighthouse. Just as she was about to launch an attack on Han Dong, buzz, an extremely strong psychic power covered her whole body. The head nurse, who had just been reborn and was still in a weak state, was unable to move. This was the doctor's ability. At the same time, because of the hostility and invasion of foreign objects, hundreds of crowmen came to the underground area from different passages. Hundreds of pairs of black eyes stared at the head nurse, making her tremble in fear, and her will to fight instantly dissipated. Especially the gaze of the crowman elder. The pressure it brought was stronger than the Lantern Man. The Lantern Man, Kanejima Soichiro, is dead. I'll give you a chance to choose. First, obey me and follow this doctor in the laboratory. I believe you've already felt that the body I reconstructed for you is very different from before, mixed with an attribute called pollution. As long as you perform well, I'll give you the opportunity to grow. In the future, you'll break through the constraints of the ghost story and be stronger than the Lantern Man. Second, reject the proposal, and then you'll become fertilizer for the manor. I, Sakurada Alina, am willing to follow, sir. The head nurse was not Kanjima Soichiro's creation. She was an independent individual, but she was valued by Soichiro and joined the Lighthouse Force. Now, Soichiro was dead, and there was a stronger person to put her in an important position. She immediately knelt on both knees and acknowledged Han Dong as her new master. Chapter 363. Everything in the lab was done. In the remaining 4 days, the elders gave Han Dong the highest level of treatment. First, they arranged a clean room suitable for humans in the castle. At the same time, they also arranged 3 carefully selected female crowmen to take care of Han Dong's daily necessities. The so-called careful selection was also done according to human standards. The 3 female crowmen all had perfect figures, but their heads couldn't be changed. They were still crows' heads. In the end, Han Dong dismissed all the female crowmen and called for the dozier crows to help him. Every minute outside the city was precious. Han Dong planned to use this time to learn crowman's magic. Han Dong let the crowman elder act as his personal trainer in these 4 days to learn a primitive black magic from the crowman tribe. As for the introductory magic book Lady Hera gave him, he would slowly read it after he returned to the city. When it was only half a day left, Han Dong, who had already learned all the basic knowledge, felt hindered when casting crow magic. When he tried to do his best, a feeling of powerlessness would spread throughout his body. Ghoul arms are originally inclined towards muscle strength, and because ghouls were formed in graveyards, they carry a bit of plague characteristics. They're more suited for close combat and plague research rather than magic. This time, I receive an extra 100 points for my use from my minor, so I need to find an arm with magic affinity. Moreover, I need an arm of high quality that I can use for a long time. Last time, I obtained the G-Virus because I had the card of fate to select movies with low difficulty, so I directly chose the one with low difficulty, Resident Evil. But this time, the card of fate can't be determined directly. Moreover, the arm I need must come from a high difficulty dungeon, or even a night-level realm of fate. How to choose an arm is a big problem. Han Dong had thought of asking the crowman elder to cut off an arm and give it to him. A hybrid demon. Elder's arm must be strong enough, but it has its limitations. Han Dong wanted an arm that could fully control magic, but the crowman elder's main attribute leaned towards witchcraft and ancient crow magic. This was not what Han Dong wanted. Moreover, their time outside the city was about to end, and they didn't have the time to search for other hybrid demons that were proficient in darkness magic. What's more, hybrid demons were rare and scattered. Pure black magic type hybrid demons were not easy to find. As for the clown's arm, it was also more of a physical item, and its magic resistance value was only E grade. If you want to get an ideal arm that can control magic in a short period of time, there's only one way: buy it. The industrial chain in the manor hadn't been formed yet, let alone building a complete trading chain. It would take some time to make money through the manor. I couldn't buy anything with the cash I had, so I had to use my connections. Whoever lends me money is my good brother. 4 days passed. The carriage from a manor came to the agreed place on the cliff. The black stone house had arrived early. When Demps walked out, compared to 4 days ago, his handsome face had some unconcealable tiredness. As soon as he stepped on the carriage, Han Dong reached out his hand. Demps' classmate, can you lend me some money? When it came to money, Han Dong first thought of Demps, who once treated Han Dong and the others to a high-end hotel. Thinking about it, Dempus, who was a scheming little handsome guy who was willing to do anything, should have earned a lot of money in private through the unique finger technique in the Holy City. He might even have a unique massage industry in the dark. Is 10,000 copper coins enough? Han Dong didn't give him a specific amount, but who knew that Dimps would ask for 5 digits? I can only take out 10,000 copper coins right now. If you don't have enough, I have to make some changes. After a week, I can lend you at least 30,000. Han Dong thought of Dimps sitting in the school and moving his fingers, and he could get 10,000 copper coins. Thinking about how it would take a long time to rebuild the manor's underground laboratory and how it hadn't been built yet, he couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Sometimes the gap between people was just that big. 10,000 is enough. 10,000 copper coins was a large amount in the Holy City. It was more than enough to buy a high-quality equipment. However, the finished equipment of unique and above quality was often priceless, but the materials were still available. Okay, I'll transfer it to your vault when I return to the city. Dimps didn't ask what Han Dong wanted to do at all and frankly borrowed the money. Thank you. I'll return it as soon as possible. It's nothing. I'm not short of money. You can use it. I haven't closed my eyes these days, so I'll sleep for a while. Dimps' eyelids began to tremble as soon as he sat in the carriage. He immediately fell asleep after saying this. Okay, the money was in place. The only thing left was how to make an equivalent exchange. Because of the existence of the faceless head, Han Dong could directly bring living things from the Destiny Realm back to reality. Other knights who entered the Destiny Realm would need to spend points to bring living things back to reality or complete enslavement. Let the system judge that the living things were completely owned by the participants of the Destiny Realm, so they could be brought back normally, except for necromancers, stitchers, and other professions. The living things in the Destiny Realm, for most knights, didn't have much value. A single arm, a single leg was no different from trash. Han Dong first ran to the trading market. Among the dazzling lineup of goods, he only found 2 arms from the Destiny Realm. One of them had been soaked in formalin solution for too long and had completely lost its vitality. The other one was just a monster's arm in Alien. Except for hardness and corrosion resistance, it didn't have any other characteristics. I can only reserve it. Holy Knights. A messenger passed through the sacred corridor carved with the murals of the Holy Maiden and came to an open inner courtyard. A golden-haired female knight in bright silver armor was practicing her striking ability here. Knight Celeste, you have a visitor. Can't you see that I'm very busy? I won't see anyone who isn't a corporal or above. He only said to let you take a look at the clockwork device. It seems like he has a message for you. Wino Celeste, who temporarily stopped practicing, picked up the clockwork device on the side and sent a voice message through the magic array embedded in it. Are you free? I have something to talk to you about. Celeste immediately stopped today's training program, tidied up her hair, and immediately went to the door. Chapter 364. Silver Armor and Blonde Hair. When Knight Celeste walked out of the door, a heavy holy aura immediately spread out. However, Han Dong, who was standing at the door, did not move at all. Sister Wino, long time no see. Wino crossed her arms in front of her chest. She was very unhappy that Han Dong did not look for her for a long time. Indeed, it has been a long time. I thought you had found a girlfriend in the mystery branch and completely forgot about me. I'm just a teammate. This time, I have something to ask of you. I wonder if you'll be going to the Destiny Realm soon. In a month. Can you help me keep an eye out for magical life forms in the Destiny Realm? It would be best if they are humanoid. If possible, cut off a complete arm and bring it back to me. What do you want to do? I want to use it myself. Of course, if there is no magical life form, then forget it. If your team can bring me an arm that meets my requirements, I am willing to pay 5,000 copper coins for it. Please make sure that the arm is fresh. In fact, other than looking for Celeste, Han Dong also specifically asked Mr. Black and White to use his identity as a stitcher in the mystery branch to offer a high price of 5,000 copper coins in the market to buy the arm of a monster of fate. The requirement was that the arm had to meet the 2 points of magic affinity and humanoid. The Knight Squad, that would be going to the Destiny Realm soon, would naturally pay attention after hearing about the purchase. It was naturally a good thing to be able to earn some money. 5,000 copper coins? Wino was shocked. After all, she was an official knight. If she did not take money from her family, it would take her several years to earn 5,000 copper coins just by relying on the salary given by the knight squad. This is not a small amount. Although finished equipment is rarely sold, it is enough for you to buy some rare materials to make good equipment. Where did you get so much money? I borrowed it from friend. I urgently need a magical arm now. I will keep an eye out for you. If the target needs to be killed, it is easy to bring back an arm. Knight Wino's meaning was clear. If she brought back an arm, she did not want Han Dong's money. Thank you, Sister Wino. Do you need me to spread the news? Sorry to trouble you. By the way, is Sister Wino free? I'll treat you to a meal. Let me change my clothes first. Wino Celeste had recently been preparing for the Destiny space in a month's time. Special training took up a lot of her time. Even if the corporal invited her to attend an event or treat her to a meal, she would directly reject him. But Han Dong was different. After the author's incident with the Cass family, Wino's attitude toward Han Dong was very special. Inside the restaurant. By the way, does Sister Winona know that Cass is here? I heard that Cass is doing some kind of special training. Cass Maldini? This kid had obtained a good evaluation twice in a row and was chosen as a top student by the Crusaders. He was selected by the Knights in advance. According to the general rules, he may be in a secret stronghold outside the city with the top students from other departments to carry out the eve of seed destruction training. Elite students are training outside the city. That's right. By the way, what's the process of seed destruction? Han Dong had always been curious about how to germinate the seed in his brain after he was allocated 5 points for his major profession. How did the so-called broken seed proceed? How was it necessary to break the seed's outer skin and promote the growth of the sapling inside? Didn't the Crow Prophet tell you? I didn't ask. Seed destruction is extremely crucial to a knight's future. The prerequisite for breaking the seed is to kill a life form outside the city alone. Draw the tainted blood to break the seed of talent. Kill a life form outside the city alone? Doesn't the seed originate from the Destiny space? I thought I would go to the Destiny space and experience a special seed destruction. The Destiny space can indiscriminately give us the flames of hope to fight against the life forms outside the city. Seed destruction is a test. Only a knight who can break the seed is worthy of being nurtured by Destiny. Han Dong nodded. I see. It's because humans are forced into a desperate situation by the life forms outside the city that the Destiny space opens. By the way, does killing normal monsters and evil work? From Han Dong's point of view, killing a low-level life form outside the city was not difficult. Han Dong had also defeated many family cadres in the Stuart Manor. Of course, it's not that simple. Seed destruction is often divided into 3 steps: search, fight, and seed destruction. The first step of searching is especially important. You have to find a rare, powerful life form outside the city that suits you as much as possible. If the life form outside the city is too weak, it doesn't suit the characteristics of a knight. In the end, the talent tree that grows after breaking the seed will be greatly limited. It is destined that the knight won't have much future development, and he won't even be able to become a knight. When breaking the seed, the life form outside the city will be recorded as important information in the knight's personal file. To a large extent, it will determine the knight's future development. Sister Wino, what kind of life form did you kill? Han Dong asked curiously. A father of sin that was only 1 step away from becoming a hybrid demon. At that time, with the help of a certain family background, I traveled through 100 kilometers of forest area and found the all-below cathedral ruins where many fallen monks gathered. It was also called the Fallen Church. After spending half a year searching, I finally found a father of sin that was alone. After successfully killing him, I broke the seed and formed a talent tree that suits me very well. Now, I can continue on the path of the Holy Army. Half a year. Yes, half a year is quite long, but some apprentice knights will spend more time. After all, The academy will give the students all the time in the 4th year to break the seed. Once the seed is broken, you can smoothly participate in the knight selection during the graduation ceremony. Han Dong nodded thoughtfully. In other words, Han Dong, who had just started his 2nd year, still had 2 years to saturate his mysticism and library. Han Dong continued to ask, "What if you kill a hybrid demon? What are you thinking? Demons, monsters, and inhumans that are about to become hybrid demons are thousands of miles away from a real hybrid demon. Out of 1,000 low-level life forms that have reached the limit, there may be one that can truly become a hybrid demon. A mere apprentice knight that has yet to break the seed wants to challenge a hybrid demon alone. You're underestimating the life forms outside the city. A year ago, the fallen baker that we killed in the underground area of the Baker family was a hybrid demon possession. But at that time, Baker was not able to use 100% of the hybrid demon's power. Otherwise, it would have been even harder to deal with. Has anyone in the Holy City done it before?" Hearing Han Dong's question, Wino felt as if her face was slapped. Wino felt as if she had been slapped in the face. In history, there were indeed mythical characters who killed hybrid demons to break the seed. The final knights that just returned to the city, the leader, Alex Reaper, once killed hybrid demons to break the seed. Chapter 365. Grim Reaper. Whenever this person was mentioned, Han Dong would think of a man riding a skeletal warhorse with a giant scythe in his hand. After all, Han Dong was on the escaping carriage and witnessed this epic scene up close. Knight Wino cleared her throat. Ahem. Captain Alex was born with an inseparable relationship with death. He was recognized as the best in the academy, and his strength has reached the standard of a normal knight. By the way, are you thinking of challenging the hybrid demons? Haha, I'm just asking out of curiosity. I still have 2 years to go before I can break my seed. Han Dong smiled foolishly. In fact, he had already begun to plan to break his seed. When the time came, Han Dong would use the manor as his trump card and let the crowmen go out to find a suitable hybrid demon for Han Dong to break his seed. After all, this was related to the formation and future development of the talent tree. Han Dong had to do his best. Wino gently tapped Han Dong's forehead with a clean spoon in her hand. Hey, what are you thinking? By the way, do you have any plans to join the Knights? With your talent, you should be able to join the Knights as a reserve and start the proper Knight training a year earlier. Sister Wino, are you trying to poach me? Haha. By the way, the Holy Knights definitely won't want someone like me. The two hadn't seen each other for a few months. Indeed, compared to the past, Han Dong had a dark aura. Such a person would definitely not be accepted by the Holy Knights. Why would we want you? I'm just asking if you have any plans. After all, I'm following Mr. Black and White. There's a higher possibility of joining the Knights of Plague. Of course, there may be other options. At this moment, Knight Wino threw out an olive branch in advance. Ahem. When you become an official knight, there will often be investigation missions on your head. I'll book you in advance to join my operation team. I'm a rare all-round knight. I can resist and provide buffs. The team will only accept elites. Okay. Han Dong smiled. Naturally, he accepted it in advance. However, this was at least 2 years later. It was normal for the agreement to change. Since the matter of the arm had already been explained, Han Dong no longer thought about it and just waited for the goods to be delivered. In a month's time, the deputy curator, Madame Hera, still had to check on the results of Han Dong's magic studies. In the remaining time, Han Dong stayed in the library as a visiting scholar. He spent most of his time reading the introductory books given to him by Miss Hera. After familiarizing himself with the basic theories of magic, Han Dong began to head to the various classrooms to attend classes. His eyes were fixed on the magic instructor on the podium, but his hands were constantly taking notes. He felt as if he had returned to his university days. After class, Han Dong would also pester the teacher to ask some very tricky and strange questions. Most of the time, they would be ignored by the teachers. Only a small number of teachers would be willing to answer them carefully. It was completely different from learning in the mystery branch. There was no shortcut to learning magic. They had to know the basics of magic. They had to memorize every basic magic incantation, and at the same time, they had to understand the repulsion between some of the incantations in order to avoid the backlash during the casting process. They could only lay the foundation through the most conventional methods of memorizing, understanding, and digesting. Unfortunately, Han Dong was very good at this. Han Dong cast a large net in the early stages and tried to understand every type of magic. However, he was different from a golden finger like Demps. He could not be proficient in all aspects. In the end, he found that the most suitable magic for him was still black magic. The teacher in charge of the introductory black magic had a rather strange personality. Every time Han Dong went up to ask, he would be given the cold shoulder. For a visiting scholar like Han Dong, he would not answer any questions at all. At the same time, during this period of learning, due to the high reward of 5,000 copper coins, 3 night squads had already contacted Han Dong. 2 of the arms were taken from ordinary magic individuals in fate events and were not boss level. There was nothing too special about them, so naturally, Han Dong would not accept them. One of the arms made Han Dong somewhat tempted. It was taken from a disciple of the magician Merlin in the world of Hellboy. His name was Gregory Edillis, a fire spell mage. It belonged to this night squad. Halfway through, they triggered the clue of the sword in the stone and were led to the hidden boss in Merlin's burial mountain. Its strength was quite strong. The arm that was brought back was sealed with ice crystals, and the fire spell patterns could still be seen on the surface of the arm. Unfortunately, Han Dong was not good at fire magic, otherwise he would definitely buy this arm. There was only one day left before the magic assessment. Han Dong planned to use Demp's authority to sleep in the library tonight. Unexpectedly, the Clockwork Watch received a message from an unknown sender, asking Han Dong to inspect the goods. The meeting place was set at a tavern in the commercial street of the Knight Academy. To a certain extent, it seemed that the other party was also an apprentice knight who had yet to graduate. Han Dong did not have much hope for this transaction at first. After all, the arm he wanted had to come from a powerhouse. However, Han Dong did not have anything to do today, and the academy was not far away, so he agreed to the meeting. However, when Han Dong arrived at the tavern and met the other party in the private room, he was slightly scared. Senior Lucius, Senior Lunz, Senior Zhun. What a coincidence! The person who found Han Dong for the transaction was actually his former nemesis, the special team that was tricked by Han Dong during the night training. These 3 people stood at the top of their batch of apprentice knights. After not seeing them for a few months, the 3 of them had also risen to senior year and would attract Seedbreaker. In front of him, the red-haired blood knight Lucius, who exuded a vampire's temperament, had a completely different aura from a few months ago. Today, Lucius had taken off his crimson knight armor. He wore a crimson suit made of high-grade silk. Congratulations, Senior Lucius, for successfully breaking the seed. Han Dong immediately congratulated him to ease the awkward atmosphere. The necromancer apprentice, Lunz, who was sitting at the side, was angry when he saw Han Dong. After all, he was almost killed by this kid. In the end, he was unable to kill the Great Lord and obtain the reward he deserved. It's actually you who sent the transaction post. Lunz, this is the academy area. Also, we are here to make a transaction. After being reprimanded by Lucius, Lunz immediately suppressed his anger. At the same time, the squirming shadow beside Han Dong returned to Zhun's body. Asterisk pat pat. Asterisk Lucius patted the sofa beside him with his hand, indicating for Han Dong to sit next to him. A pair of fangs could be faintly seen between his crimson lips. As soon as Han Dong sat down, a light arm with a blood-red aura rested on Han Dong's shoulder. Lucius's arm was light and slender, not like a man's are at all. At the same time, a wooden box sealed with many incantations was placed on the table. We want 8,000 copper coins for this arm. I think it's worth the price. Chapter 366. Han Dong didn't care about the murderous aura emitted from Lucius' body and the blood that might have seeped into his skin. He also didn't care about the high price. Staring at the ancient wooden box with a seal on the table, he vaguely smelled the scent of black magic. Han Dong couldn't help but reach out to touch the wooden box. Ha! His hand was immediately blocked by blood that appeared out of thin air. Don't be in a hurry to touch it. This thing is quite dangerous. Since it's a transaction, we have to see the money before we can let you inspect the goods. Okay. Han Dong decisively turned on the treasury function in his wind-up watch, showing the 10,000 gold coins stored inside. I didn't expect you to get so much money. If I had known, I would have asked for 10,000 gold coins. Take the extra as compensation for our mental trauma. Huh? Can I see the goods first? Han Dong laughed awkwardly. Yes. Before opening the wooden box, Lucius bit his finger and let the blood that flowed out from his body sprinkle on the table. Under his control, the blood formed an external formation to suppress the arm in the wooden box. At the same time, Senior Sister Zhen also controlled the shadows in the area. Luanze also mobilized the death energy in his body, ready to assist in suppressing the arm. When the wooden box was opened, a small amount of sand flew in the air and even formed a small sand vortex. However, with the activation of the blood formation, the flying sand was immediately suppressed and scattered on the table and wrapped in blood. Inside the wooden box was a mummified arm wrapped in wrinkled and partially decayed white bandages. This white bandage seemed to be a layer of seal. Let me briefly explain the origin of this arm. First of all, there is absolutely no problem with the freshness of this arm. It has been separated from the main body for less than 3 days. Moreover, it has a certain level of self-awareness. Okay, Han Dong nodded. He could clearly feel that the arm was alive. My teammates and I happened to have a suitable card of fate and urgently needed some items from the Destiny world. Without requiring points, we entered the Destiny world during the cooldown period. The event we encountered was called the Mummy. This arm came from High Priest Imhotep, who was sealed in the depths of the Hamunitha. Han Dong had naturally watched this classic movie when he was alive. It was considered one of the pinnacle of fantasy movies at that time. This high priest of ancient Egypt was punished for committing a serious crime and was eventually turned into a mummy that could only bring destruction and disaster to the world, in Han Dong's opinion. The level of such a movie should be something that only corporal knights could come into contact with. Who would have thought that Lucius, who had just broken his seed, would actually encounter it? You kill the high priest. No, our mission isn't to kill him. We just want to take away some important items. The great shaman who keeps reviving will keep hindering us during this process. Every time he sucked a grave robber dry, he would recover a portion of his strength. The fate event's speed shift was set at the moment when the high priest is fully recovered. Let's leave before he fully recovers. After all, if we don't get any points, there's not much point in completing the quest perfectly. As long as we get what we want, it's fine. This arm was perfectly cut off by Jean when the High Priest Imhotep had just recovered to the second stage. I want this arm. Han Dong did not hesitate and directly transferred 8,000 copper coins to Lucius through the portable transfer function of the vault. Click! The wooden box closed and the arm was sealed again. Happy trading. Although there was a big conflict between Han Dong and them. But after the last incident outside the city, Lucius immediately investigated Han Dong's identity in private and finally found a person, Mr. Black and White. Therefore, it was not appropriate to find trouble with Han Dong in the academy. If Han Dong paid for the transaction here and they did not give him the goods, Mr. Black and White would definitely be the first to know. Besides, such an arm was not of much use to them. 8,000 copper coins were enough for Lucius to buy some precious materials to forge the equipment he needed to reach the night stage. Thank you again, Senior. Han Dong quickly left with the wooden box. Lunz, the necromancer apprentice, was furious, but he did not dare to act impulsively because of Lucius's presence. Captain, this kid completely messed up our plan. Originally, Our team could have obtained the priceless gold medal. In the end, we didn't get anything and almost got into trouble. Lucius was not angry at all and said calmly, "This is our own problem. The price of underestimating a person and not being cautious enough. Lunds, after today, don't find trouble with this student again. I was in close contact with him just now, and this guy was not affected by my evil spirit. Also, I can feel a rather strange energy from his body, so much so that my blood can't penetrate it normally." Lunds was surprised. "How was that possible? Captain, didn't you already break the seed? This student of the Crow Prophet should have more secrets hidden in his body than all of us imagined. I suspect that the Old King incident is directly related to this person. In short, let's pretend that nothing happened in the past. This money will be divided equally between the two of you. Use it to buy some necessary materials to deal with the broken seed." Han Dong left the tavern. He had completely forgotten the oppressive feeling brought by Lucius's group. Concentrating on the arm in the wooden box, he immediately called for a high-class carriage to return to the mystery branch. Once the usability of the arm was detected, Han Dong would undergo a qualitative change in his body tonight. It really came true. The undying sacrifice Imhotep, the arm of the high priest that can bring great disaster to the world in the movies, was actually obtained like this. This arm corresponds to the black magic that originated from ancient Egypt in the truest sense. It's completely worth the price. Dempsey's money, I'll return it in the future. Although this arm is an incomplete cut-off before Imhotep fully recovered, it's completely enough for me to use now. On the contrary, I'm still unable to control a complete arm at the moment. At the same time, Imhotep's mummified arm that needs to be constantly perfected also briefly states that this arm still has room for improvement. It can be continuously perfected in the future by meeting certain conditions and even continue to improve its quality. Han Dong activated his little magic eye to observe the surroundings of the carriage throughout the journey to ensure that nothing unexpected happened during the journey to the mystery branch. Most importantly, why is this arm reacting to my head? Chapter 367. When the carriage entered the mystery branch and was enveloped by the dark moon, Han Dong felt at ease. This arm was too important to him. Moreover, Han Dong had never encountered a situation where a living creature in the destiny realm could react to his brain. Strange, why would a living creature in the destiny realm react to my brain? The formation of the Gate of Destiny was to give humans a chance. It gave humans unimaginable power to deal with the life forms outside the city. Destiny itself absolutely rejected the life forms outside the city. I can't feel any aura of pollution from this arm, but it has a subtle reaction with my brain. Is it related to the origin of Imhotep itself, or some kind of attribute? He was full of doubts. When Han Dong arrived at the Dark Moon Tower, he immediately took the elevator to the top floor. However, just as the elevator was slowly rising, a shadow moved in the corner. Senior Sister Jeanne, who was wearing a mask, revealed her true form. Han Dong immediately turned sideways and faced Senior Sister Jeanne, but he did not take out his combat state. Han Dong knew very well that this was the Dark Moon Tower and Mr. Black and White was monitoring everything. A mystery branch student must not cause trouble here. Senior Sister, what's the matter? I'm just curious why you spent such a high price to buy this arm. Your first teacher is Teacher Pasha from the sewers, and she specializes in the study of the plague. Your second teacher is Mr. Black and White. Neither of them has anything to do with sewing. Can you tell me? Senior Sister Jin seemed to be asking out of curiosity, but in fact, she had other thoughts. It seemed that she was very interested in this excellent junior brother. If I say that I taught myself sewing, would you believe me? When Han Dong gave such a reply, he could feel the killing intent in Senior Sister Jean's eyes. I'm just kidding. Just treat it as a secret between us. I hope you won't tell anyone. After this Destiny realm ends, I will put all my points into my second profession, library. Currently, I'm minoring in magic, mainly related to the study of black magic. The arm of Imhotep is very helpful for my studies. In addition, I really taught myself some sewing. I'm not lying to you. Minoring? Do you want to ruin your own future? Putting aside the grudges between the two of them. In terms of talent alone, senior sister Jeanne still thought highly of her junior, Han Dong. However, she couldn't understand why Han Dong had chosen a minor in operations. After all, not everyone was an anomaly like the Great Plague Boss. If one wanted to fuse a tree seed and create a brand new talent tree, it wasn't something that could be done with just hard work and talent. It also required a combination of opportunity and luck. I'm just following my heart. It's still too early to say if it's ruined. I look forward to your performance in 2 years. Senior sister Jeanne quickly blended into the shadows and disappeared. Han Dong had a helpless look on his face. Since this highly talented senior sister who could control shadows could appear beside him at any time in the academy, it meant that she could also appear at any time outside the academy. He could even kill Han Dong while he was sleeping. He had to stay at a respectful distance and not offend the senior sister. Stargazing room. Mr. Black and White naturally knew what had happened. He had already opened a hidden and spacious compartment for Han Dong in advance. Before bringing the arm into the biological laboratory, Han Dong had to make sure that the arm wouldn't hurt his brain. Therefore, he first placed the wooden box in the center of the room. Book of the Dead. I part copy. He imitated Lucius's method. Before opening the box, Han Dong first drew a seal array. This kind of eye array was enough to suppress an arm separated from Imhotep's body. Double insurance. Han Dong also asked Togu to appear and be ready to bind the arm with an iron chain at any time. Box opening. It was similar to the previous situation. The yellow sand flew away, and a small sandstorm vortex formed in the compartment. The array was activated. Buzz. The yellow sand quickly disintegrated and fell. Gurgle, gurgle. Eyes grew on the ground, the ceiling, and even the surface of the wooden box and the old bandage wrapped around the arm, completely suppressing the arm. There's no problem with the freshness of such an arm with self-awareness. Let's take a look at the bandage. Han Dong used the G-arm to remove the bandage. The moment his index finger touched the bandage, bursts of tingling pain immediately spread from his fingertip. Looking closely, Han Dong's index finger was completely decertified. It was more troublesome than Han Dong expected. If he couldn't overcome the effects of desertification, the subsequent connection of the arm would become a problem. G-virus characteristics were activated. The finger immediately grew new flesh. At the same time, he used the crow magic he currently mastered to offset the effects of desertification. He gradually removed the layers of bandage. A mummy's arm with less than 20% meat coverage was revealed in Han Dong's eyes. There were signs of yellow sand flowing between the dried and decayed meat. Han Dong even saw a sacred beetle with a golden pattern on its shell drilling in and out of the meat. However, upon closer inspection, he found that such a sacred beetle was not an individual life form, but a magic creature composed of yellow sand. It was one of the abilities attached to this arm. Is this the arm of the undead sacrifice? I must bring it back to the biological laboratory to test its data. Just as Han Dong was considering the risks involved, a voice suddenly sounded. A voice came from his brain as if it had self-consciousness. Living creatures brought to the portable prison will be suppressed by the prison. There is no need to worry about its threat. With such a reply, Han Dong decisively brought it back to the laboratory. He removed the clown's arm that was originally fixed on scanner. He carefully placed the arm in the wooden box on the scanner. Arm testing. Estimated time required is 1 hour 38 minutes. The more complex the structure of the limb, the longer the testing time. While waiting, Han Dong began another necessary indication, the transformation of essence into weight. Since the end of the clown's resurrection, Part 1, Han Dong's cell weight had reached the maximum limit, 200. Since then, he had been collecting cell essence, including the essence extracted from the cadres in Stuart Manor and a large amount of cell essence obtained in the world of ghost stories. He came to the clean workbench. Holding a metal-rimmed syringe, He injected all the cell essence into Han Dong's main body. After the cell essence, stem cells from other life forms were absorbed by the main body cells. The cell mass grew and its weight increased. Soon, it reached 300 points of weight. Cell essence absorption complete. Current weight of individual 200 used, 300 upper limit. Han Dong's current wish was that Imhotep's arm did not exceed 100 points of weight. Other costs were acceptable. Time is up. Beep, beep, beep. A test report came from the side. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.